Chapter 1463. The teams of the 8 great alliances were majestic. Alliance Master Zwabuffon was in the front, but there was another person who was on equal footing beside him. Tian Wushuang, the prince of the Heavenly Eye tribe. Someone as noble as Tian Wushuang would not sit behind Zwabuffan. In fact, he was already giving Zwabuffan face by sitting side by side. If not for the fact that he was not the main character of this battle, he would not be so accommodating. His face was full of arrogance and disdain. However, Tian Wushuang did have the right to put on airs. What were humans to him? A tribe that did not even respect a sage king was no different from trash. Most importantly, cluck, cluck. Tian Wushuang ground his teeth. His eyes were full of killing intent and cold light. Thinking back to how he had been humiliated by that human martial artist called Lin Feng twice in Yin Imperial City, and how he had lost all his face, he felt a surge of anger in his heart. The last time, 2 of his Sage King Guard were killed, and he almost died in Lin Feng's hands. This hatred was deeply imprinted in his heart. How could he forget? Lowly humans. Tian Wushuang's hatred was deep. As a prince, he was humiliated like this. Where was his dignity? He agreed to help Zwabuffan not only because of the beauty, but also because of this. He wanted to vent on humans and kill them to his heart's content. This time, he even brought 5 Sage King Guards. One of them was Enai Long, one of the strongest in the Heavenly Eye tribe. He had just broken through and officially reached the peak of the Sage King realm. This lineup was worthy of the word luxurious. Coming here was no different from playing. It was said that there was not even a single Sage King in the southern region. Humans are no different from ants. If not for the sorcerer tribe raising them, they would have gone extinct long ago. Tian Wushuang sneered and thought, every one of them is extremely stupid. They think that it is useful to occupy such a large territory. Don't they know that these are all wastelands? How many strong warriors have there been in such a large number of tribes? Speaking of which, human women are not bad. Cluck cluck. Tian Wushuang thought, and his soul flew away again. In his mind, the past few days of drunken stupor appeared. Those bodies as smooth as milk made him want to die. He couldn't wait to go back to the bathtub and enjoy himself. Not here yet. Yin Wushuang frowned. He didn't want to waste any more time. Compared to a slaughterhouse, he preferred a gentle home. It's right ahead. Zwabuffan smiled faintly. His eyes flashed as he clearly sensed a looming and powerful aura not far in front of him. However, there was only one aura. Was he really alone? Zwabuffan was puzzled, but there were many of his spies in the southern region, so he naturally knew what Lin Feng was up to. He couldn't understand why he had been here all this time. Was Lin Feng really that confident, or did he have other plans? For example, ambushes, traps, or the so-called empty fort strategy. Oh, a Saint King expert. Tian Wushuang reacted at this time, a sharp light flashing in his eyes. Glancing at Zwabuffan, who had an ignorant look, Tian Wushuang turned to Enai Long behind him and asked in a deep voice, "How is it? Early Saint King, alone." Enai Long's expression was cold, revealing a hint of arrogance. Tian Wushuang nodded, not caring too much. To him, even a peak Saint King was nothing, let alone an early Saint King. Most importantly, Enai Long's reaction told him that there was no danger. Enai Long was 100% confident that he could easily kill an early Saint King. This time, he had come fully prepared. Oof, humans are really dishonest. Tian Wushuang muttered a few words, but was too lazy to argue with Zwabuffan. With an apologetic smile, Zwabuffan didn't dare to say anything, but the more he said, the more mistakes he made. His eyes flashed and his heart surged. There was a Saint King in the Southern Territory? Who was it? Shun, King Yin, King Lu, or the Lord of the Southern Territory, Lin Feng? Pursing his lips, Zwabuffan's heart showed a hint of hesitation. At this moment, he seemed to understand why Lin Feng dared to fight alone. However, looking at Tian Wushuang and the others, the corners of Zwabuffan's mouth curled up, and he instantly regained his confidence. Fortunately, he was prepared, just in case he asked for help. Otherwise, there might really be some trouble this time. Lin Feng, you probably didn't expect that this time there would be a powerhouse from the Heavenly Eye clan accompanying you. Just wait for your death. Now, even if you want to escape, there is no way out. Ha ha! Indeed, it was unexpected. Lin Feng's eyes flashed. He didn't expect to meet Tian Wu Shuang here at all. This was the so-called prince of the Heavenly Eye clan. Back then, Dong Tung protected him and let him escape again and again. This time, you can't do the same thing more than 3 times. Let's see who else can protect you. Lin Feng smiled indifferently. Now, he was no longer weak and powerless when he first entered Yin Imperial City. Back then, he couldn't kill Tian Wu Shuang because of Dong Tung. However, this time, even if Dong Tung was reborn, he would send Tian Wu Shuang back to the Yellow Springs. He had always wanted to eliminate the root of the problem to prevent future troubles. He didn't expect the prey to come to him. It couldn't be better. They're here. Lin Feng's expression was calm. The doomsday spear in his hand flashed with blue light and became faintly discernible. In front of him, there was a large group of people. Although he had never seen the person in front, he had seen information about him. He was the leader of the 8 Major Domain Alliance, the strongest human below the 12 sages, Zhuo Bufan. Beside him, there was a short and ugly 3-eyed monster. It was Tian Wu Shuang. Peng. Tian Wu Shuang was shocked. He widened his eyes and looked at the scene in front of him in disbelief. It was a familiar face, a face that terrified him. Lin Feng. Tian Wu Shuang's face instantly turned pale. He felt a sense of chaos. His heart was filled with anger and fear. How could it be him? How could he meet him here? Tian Wu Shuang still remembered the 2 grudges he had with Lin Feng. As the prince of the Heavenly Eye tribe, that was the greatest humiliation he had ever suffered. It was all thanks to this human in front of him. The second time, he had almost died in Yin Imperial City. Because of Lin Feng, he hated humans to the core. But now, Tian Wu Shuang's body staggered. His face was pale, and he instinctively took a small step back. Prince, he is the leader of the southern region, Lin Feng. Zhuo Bufan's eyes were cold and bright. Lin Feng, it was him. Tian Wu Shuang's mind went blank. Southern region. More than 1 million screens in the sky were showing the same scene. Countless human ancient martial art practitioners gathered under the sky and looked anxiously at everything that was being shown. The leader of the southern region, Emperor Lin, was doing exactly the same as he had for the past 3 days. He stood proudly outside the southern region, guarding the barrier of the southern region alone. The only difference was, right now, the sky screen was no longer empty. It was densely packed. The experts of the 8 Great Domain Alliance arrived in a formidable array, especially the Alliance leader, Zhuo Bufan, and the Vice Alliance leader, Elder Liu. They were famous and had been recognized long ago. However, this was not unexpected. The news of the 8 Region Alliance attacking the southern region had spread throughout the southern region. Every ancient martial art practitioner knew about it. What was shocking was those 3-eyed monsters. What the hell are those? How scary. Why do they have 3 eyes? They are monsters. Those are the Heavenly Eye clan. They are a legendary clan. It is said that every member of the Heavenly Eye clan is a natural Heavenly Soul Master. Look at the heavenly eyes of those Heavenly Eye clan members. They are definitely holy kings. It can't be. There is no lack of knowledgeable ancient martial art practitioners. The Heavenly Eye clan members were quickly recognized. Everyone was anxious. The sky seemed to have darkened, and there was no more light. Faced with such a terrifying enemy and such a huge army, how could Emperor Lin defend himself alone? Just those monsters alone could probably tear him to pieces. It was too terrifying. It's over. The southern region is finished. Damn the 8 Region Alliance. They're so shameless. Cries of despair could be heard. The huge difference in power made the hearts of the citizens of the southern region turn cold. Some even covered their eyes, not daring to watch the tragedy unfold. They were afraid that in the next second, the sky would be filled with blood and flesh. Emperor Lin would be killed without a burial place, and the southern region would be plunged into hell. Blood would flow like a river. It was truly 1 against 10,000. Lin Feng was alone, holding the Doomsday Spear in his hand, facing the countless enemies. Behind him, more and more enemies were coming, and their numbers were increasing. It was not unfamiliar. Lin Feng's lips curled into a faint smile. The scene of the Tianwu continent that day appeared in his mind. Once, he had faced the beast tied alone with his spear. The only difference was that the number of beasts that day was in the hundreds of millions, far more than the number of cultivators. Of course, the beasts that weren't even at the level of the Star Lord could be torn to shreds by any of the saints present. Times had changed. It was like a reincarnation cycle. Many things had changed, but many things remained the same. Clang! The Doomsday Spear shone with a blue light. Faced with such a large number of enemies, Lin Feng was not nervous at all. He was not even excited. After being on the battlefield for so long, his heart was as hard as steel. So what if there were more enemies? In his eyes, they were just clowns. They could not withstand a single blow, just like those foolish beasts in the kingdom of Maru. Today, he would kill again. Those who offend the southern region will be killed without mercy. Lin Feng's voice was like a bell. His eyes shone brightly. As the blue light shone, the Doomsday Spear let out a shocking sound. It was like a thunderclap. Faced with the army of the 8-region alliance, Lin Feng shot out like a shooting star. Bang! His target was the arrowhead of the strongest army, Ming Wushuang. Die! Lin Feng was filled with killing intent. Happy National Day. Chapter 1464. The murderous aura surged towards him. Yin Wushuang's expression changed. It was as if he had returned to the time in Yin Imperial City. Even though there were countless allies around him, he felt so isolated and helpless. It was as if he had entered an arena and was facing Lin Feng. The aura locked onto him and was filled with murderous intent. It was as powerful as an Azura. The confidence was terrifying. The nightmare reappeared. No. Yin Wushuang was a little stunned. Even though he was mentally prepared, he did not expect Lin Feng to be more than 10 times stronger than before. Under the intense pressure, he could not move at all. It was as if the power of the heavens was not on the same level as him. However, Yin Wushuang was not alone. Chi! A light flashed and shielded Yin Wushuang behind him. The super elite of the Heavenly Eye tribe, an eye long. Peak Saint King. Pong. The aura exploded, bringing with it a rich star source energy. An eye long strength could be seen the moment he unleashed it. Not far away, Zhubu Fan's eyes lit up. He could feel it at such a close distance and was deeply moved. Not only him, but the other saints of the 8 Great Domain Alliance were also knowledgeable. How could they not be shocked when they saw the legendary Peak Saint King? Most importantly, this Peak Saint King was on their side. It directly swallowed Lin Feng's aura. Yin Wushuang's pressure disappeared, and his pale face regained some color. The bloody light in his eyes condensed. He was ashamed of his loss of composure. However, no one paid attention to him. Everyone's eyes were focused on N.I. Long. They did not even blink. They wanted to see for themselves how powerful a Peak Saint King was. However, N.I. Long, on the other hand, knew his own difficulties. He was deeply conflicted. He had thought that this black-clothed youth was just a beginner Saint King. He was mocking Yin Wushuang in his heart when he saw him lose his composure. Who would have thought that after taking over Yin Wushuang's position, he would know how terrifying this black-clothed youth's aura was? He was a true martial artist. A martial artist who had survived countless life and death situations. His battle prowess was much stronger than his actual strength. Pong! Pong! His heartbeat quickened, and he clenched his fists tightly. A cold light flashed in N.I. Long's eyes. At this moment, he already felt a deep sense of threat. This was the vigilance of a strong cultivator, a fear of danger and death. Even if he was a Peak Saint King, he was still a heavenly deity. The Heavenly Eye clan possessed extremely strong soul power, but their bodies were their weakest link. They were even weaker than ordinary heavenly deities. Once a powerful heaven-level martial artist got close to him, the consequences would be unimaginable. Mystery of the heavens, I seal. And I long bellowed. In a split second, the third eye on his forehead opened violently, forming a huge slit that shone brightly. Beams of light that were condensed from pure soul energy formed a spiral shape and flew out swiftly. The power was suffocating and terrifying. It contained a profound Tao of constellations, causing time to seemingly stop. This was a peak Saint King-level powerhouse of the Heavenly Eye clan. He could already materialize his soul power and transform it into an attack. The surrounding martial artists all gaped in shock. Such a powerful soul force had far surpassed their imaginations. If they were struck by this soul force, not only would they be restrained, but they might even be killed. Swish! Lin Feng's eyes glowed slightly. His expression was unsettled. In these 3 days, he had not simply stood here. He had also been cultivating, thinking, and improving, especially this clone of his. Successfully fusing with the blue heaven-level treasure, Demon Underworld Lock, had given him too much inspiration. All this time, he had not properly utilized this heaven-given body. This body had already surpassed the Saint King level. Not only did it possess the physique of the Douling world, but it also possessed a power that surpassed the Douling world. Soul. 7 souls as one. Perhaps in terms of power, a soul of the same level was far inferior to a soul. However, the fusion of a heaven-level treasure was enough to prove one thing. In fact, the two had a lot in common. Heavenly deities were soul cultivators. If one broke through to the starry sky realm, one soul would be the main body. However, heavenly martial artists were soul cultivators. The human soul in their body was only a support. 7 souls as one. His clone already possessed an independent small universe that contained limitless possibilities. The Tao of constellations was completely nurtured within. This characteristic was exactly the same as the characteristics of the original body's life soul. In other words, the soul could continue to cultivate and improve its strength. Especially now. Lin Feng's eyes glowed. His aura exploded. The Ursa major constellation star seal on his forehead flashed clearly. The golden star power rampaged. His entire person changed instantly. The human soul's power was hidden. On the contrary, the 7 souls as one formed a thick golden light, replacing the human soul to take the attack of the Heavenly Eye Clan's elite, actively switching to defense. Bang! Golden spears clashed violently. Lin Feng moved. He felt the power of the Heavenly Eye Clan was like a sharp thorn that wanted to drill into his body. It was like a spiral twisting the power in his body. However, it fell into the 7 main stars of the Ursa major constellation. The small universe formed by the 7 souls as one completely swallowed the soul's power. He was unharmed. Clang! The doomsday spear flashed. The blue light was extremely dazzling. Lin Feng's eyes were filled with killing intent. Facing N.I. Long's soul-binding attack, he was indifferent. Now, he was completely fearless. What? N.I. Long's expression changed. He was completely stunned. He had never encountered such a situation. Even if the soul's power could not cause fatal damage, it would at least affect the martial artist. Or it could use the special effect of sealing to bind the opponent. However, this human youth in front of him seemed to have no soul. It was extremely strange. What was going on? N.I. Long was shocked. He could not figure out the reason. Not only him, but Yin Wushuang and the other elites of the Heavenly Eye clan were also puzzled. They were very clear about N.I. Long's strength. The mystery of the Heavenly Eye just now was not a random attack, nor was it a failure. However, there was no time to think or hesitate. Lin Feng's attack came in the blink of an eye. Damn it! N.I. Long clenched his fists. However, he could not retreat. It was not only because his speed was not as fast as Lin Feng, but also because Prince Yin Wushuang was behind him. If he could not protect Prince Yin Wushuang, even if he could return alive, he would be executed. Swish! His body flashed with a dark green light. The star armor instantly flashed. His defense and attack were activated almost at the same time. His eyes flashed with even brighter colors. A terrifying light gathered and condensed into one with his entire body. Pure peak Saint King strength mixed with the Tao of constellation gushed out like spring water. Right now, and I Long had no choice but to go all out. Mystery of the heavenly eye, kill. And I Long's eyes were about to burst. The soul's power turned into a sharp arrow. Its light was 10 times brighter than before. It was a pure light source mixed with the powerful Tao of constellation. It was slightly different from before. This sharp arrow contained a bloody light, but it was deeply connected to Ni Long. He had just stepped into the peak Saint King realm not long ago. He had not yet fully materialized his soul power, especially when it was too strong. The mystery of the heavenly eye, kill, was already 50% of his power. It was far from the previous 5% of ceiling. Faced with Lin Feng's attack and extreme pressure, Ni Long had no choice but to reveal his trump card. The surrounding area was filled with gasps. All the cultivators of the 8 Great Territory Alliance were stunned by this terrifying energy. This was the true peak power of the world. The terror of the soul made every cultivator's heart tremble violently. Even Ming Wushuang was greatly shocked. He had never seen Ni Long forced to such a state. He was the #1 warrior of the Heavenly Eye clan. But now, facing a mere human, he had to use his most powerful ultimate move right from the start. It was too shocking. Ni Long's reaction was very accurate and fast. However, today's Lin Feng was completely different from before. His doppelganger's comprehension had raised his strength to a whole new level. Starry Sky level soul. Perhaps it could not be used to attack, but it could replace the human soul as a defense. The 7 spots of light in his body shone brightly like the 7 main stars of the Ursa Major constellation. The energy of the small universe formed the Tao of constellation. It formed the true star source energy and completely protected the human soul. Like a black hole, it instantly swallowed the human soul. A heavenly soul master is completely subdued. Lin Feng's eyes shone brightly. The terrifying soul energy shot into his body. Although it caused a huge tremor, like a huge wave in a lake, it was nothing more than that. Even if it caused a huge wave in the lake, it could not change the fact that the soul energy was completely swallowed by his soul. The power of a Starry Sky master was too strong. Clang! The Doomsday spear clanged loudly. In such a short distance, Ni Long's reaction was fast enough. His attack was ferocious enough, but it was all for naught. If it was the Lin Feng from 3 days ago, if he fought with his real body, the result would be different. But now, his doppelganger was far stronger than before. So what if he was a peak Saint King? It was like a mouse. No matter how strong it was still inferior to its natural enemy. Chi, a simple and clean spear, as if it had returned to its original state, nurturing an extremely powerful spear art. Lin Feng did not use any effort at all. For the current him, all spear arts and spear moves were imprinted in his heart. He had comprehended a new realm of spear art. This simple spear move combined with his footwork, astral source energy, and Tao of constellations was enough to unleash an astonishing power. Especially when the power reached the limit of the Douling world. It was even more irresistible. How could a mere heavenly eye clan resist? Chi, the spear pierced through. Ni Long's star armor was shattered like tofu. No matter how strong he was still a heavenly god at the peak of the Saint King realm. His physique was not even comparable to some peak martial saints. How could he resist Lin Feng's terrifying attack? The spear pierced through, the blue light flashed completely, and the astral source energy exploded instantly. Bang! A bloody mess appeared. Everyone was stunned on the spot, as if they had been petrified. No one would have thought that a peak Saint King realm expert would die without a burial place in front of Lin Feng in just one move. This was too terrifying. No way. Min Wushuang trembled violently, his face pale. The #1 warrior of the Heavenly Eye clan, Ni Long, had died. Chapter 1465. Dumbfounded. Below the sky, the crowd of martial artists stared at the scene before them in disbelief. However, the ones who were most shocked were the martial artists from the 8 Great Domain Alliance and the experts from the Heavenly Eye tribe, especially Tong Wushuang. An Ai Long's name might be unknown in the Yin Imperial City, the Underworld, and the Lulan Kingdom, but it was exceptionally loud in the Heavenly Eye tribe. The number 1 warrior of the Heavenly Eye tribe was not just for show. In the Heavenly Eye tribe, it was rare for someone to be able to fight an Ai Long to a draw. The strength of a peak Saint King was unparalleled. However, right before their eyes, he was instantly killed the moment he crossed swords with Lin Feng. What happened in such a short time? The outcome was decided too quickly, so quickly that the experts had no idea what was going on. In the blink of an eye, under the blue light, an Ai Long's blood splattered everywhere, and his body fell to the ground. However, there was no time for anyone to react. Lin Feng's eyes flashed, and the mist cloud steps was executed naturally. With a sweep of the Doomsday Spear, he directly tore another Saint King expert from the Heavenly Eye tribe into pieces. Out of the 5 Saint Kings from the Heavenly Eye tribe, 2 were instantly killed. Pong! The sound of the explosion was like thunder, and the fresh blood instantly woke up the rest of the Heavenly Eye tribe experts, their eyes bloodshot. Especially Tong Wushuang, who had goosebumps all over his body. A terrifying fear and horror rose from the depths of his heart, and he almost hysterically screamed, "Kill him! Quickly! Kill this bastard!" His voice was sharp, but he had no confidence. His figure staggered back, and Tong Wushuang's face was pale. Cold sweat dripped from his forehead, and the fear in his heart was fully reflected. Zhuo Bufan, who had witnessed all this with his own eyes, had an ashen face, and his hands and feet were cold. So strong. Feeling this aura up close, and feeling this terrifying battle scene, Zhuo Bufan suddenly realized that his previous concept of experts had collapsed in an instant. He gulped and looked at the seemingly ordinary Lin Feng in front of him. He was so close, but he could not reach him. Too terrifying. Although he had broken through to the beginner Saint King level, the difference between him and Lin Feng was like the difference between a firefly and the moon. They were not on the same level at all. Space. Even though it was a small space, the scene was clearly imprinted in his mind. Lin Feng's eyes sharpened. After breaking through to the Saint King realm, the Space Dao ability hidden in the doppelganger's body seemed to have awakened, and the Emperor constellation of the Ursa Major constellation seemed to be slowly brightening. That day, he had personally witnessed the battle between the witch Emperor Jiang and the Monster Clan commander, and everything he did not understand before was now suddenly clear. The Ursa Major constellation possessed 3 different types of origin power. Metal Space Force, compared to the 12 constellations of the Royal Dao, which possessed 2 types of origin powers. The 5 great sovereign constellations only revealed their true ferociousness from the Saint King realm onwards. Chi. Almost effortlessly, the spear arrived. He was able to control space as he wished. The movement of the enemy and the direction of their attacks were like tiny dots in a spider's web. They were clearly reflected in his mind, allowing him to analyze and control them in an instant. His spear art seemed to have returned to its original state, returning to its original state. Pong! The seemingly calm spear was actually extremely heavy. The Tao of strength explode. Lin Feng's gaze was deep, his expression calm and composed. One step, one strike. The Doomsday Spear was like the end of the world. There were no survivors under the spear. The so-called experts of the Heavenly Eye race were like paper. There was no difference between the Saint Realm and the Saint King Realm to him. 7 souls combined into one. The Starry Sky Realm soul within his body was under intense attacks. However, in the Ursa Major constellation, there was a starry sky formed from the power of heaven and earth that turned these soul attacks into nothing. Like a black hole, the soul attacks were completely devoured. Heavenly Soul Master, complete counter. The southern region was very quiet. It was so quiet that not a single sound could be heard. Even if a needle dropped, one could hear it. One by one, the martial artists looked at the sky. They looked at the blood splattering everywhere, the spear in their hands falling down, and the corpses strewn everywhere. Their eyes widened in disbelief. The so-called experts of the Heavenly Eye race were like scarecrows. They could not even withstand a single blow from Emperor Lin. None of his subordinates could withstand a single blow. It was truly terrifying. The manifestation of true strength, the true control of the situation, the development of the war had far exceeded the expectations of the southern region martial artists. They had always thought that Emperor Lin had generously sacrificed himself for a cause. Who would have thought that it was like a lion hunting a rabbit? It was too easy. Paradise. So weak, muttered King Yen. These are the Heavenly Eye race. King Lu was stunned. They are the Heavenly Eye race, and there are 5 Saint King realm experts of the Heavenly Eye race. The first one to be killed was a peak Saint King. Shun's eyes lit up as he spoke in a deep voice. The nearly 100 martial artists behind him were dumbfounded. They were extremely shocked by the scene in front of them. They were all carefully selected saints of the southern region to carry out the god-making plan. Most of them had only heard of Emperor Lin, the ruler of the southern region. At most, they had only seen him in the battle with the human demon Holy Lord. However, this time, it was an eye-opener. Lin Feng's strength shocked them. Absolute strength had won them over. What kind of terrifying strength was this? It's not that they are weak. King Yan's eyes sparkled. It's that Emperor Lin is too strong. King Lu nodded in agreement. There was deep respect in his eyes. He killed a peak Saint King realm expert single-handedly. In less than 3 seconds, he killed more than 10 Heavenly Eye race experts. Only, Shun muttered to himself, his voice trembling slightly. The last one. No, the last one is also dead. His voice fell solemnly. It was as if a huge rock had fallen on the hearts of the saints, making them unable to breathe. Lin Feng's strength made them feel deeply suffocated. The so-called Saint King realm experts were like ants in front of him. He killed them without holding back. He was like a tiger in a flock of sheep. He was unstoppable. When the blue light appeared in his hand, blood would splatter and a corpse would appear. In just a few seconds, all the Heavenly Eye race experts were dead. Only the last one was left. Min Wushuang, who had fled like a stray dog, was still in shock. He no longer had any will to fight. He had already abandoned his clansmen. He no longer cared about his face. Saving his life was more important. He fled frantically, his eyes filled with shock. To him, this place was no longer heaven. It was hell, and that human youth with the spear was simply a demon. He had never seen such a terrifying demon. In the 3 imperial cities of Tianling, he was a small tyrant. He was rich and had a strong background. But it was useless in front of this human. It was unreasonable. He didn't care about the Heavenly Eye race or the so-called neutral alliance, Tianling. It was as if his life was no longer under his control. Yin Wushuang felt a chill run down his spine. Even though he had passed through countless human experts from the 8 major domains and had so many meat shields, he didn't feel safe at all. It was as if the people around him were just statues or stones. Only he and Lin Feng were left. He gritted his teeth and fled with a twisted expression. But could he escape? Sizzle. Sizzle. Space twisted like a demon's hand was twisting the entire space. It was as if the entire space was being twisted like plasticine. Strong spatial energy appeared. Min Wushuang's face was filled with shock, and his heart trembled. All that was left in front of him was the blue light that shot into his eyes. His limbs were powerless. It was as if a terrifying force had tightly bound him. The aura of death filled the sky. The entire space twisted and everything around him changed in an instant. No, no, Min Wushuang muttered in shock. However, no one heard this voice. It seemed real but illusory. The blue light enveloped the entire area. Doling Sovereign ranked 13th, Demon Underworld Lock. Boom! The explosion was deafening. Southern region. Under the millions of sky, many shocked faces were reflected. Previously, they were still admiring Lin Feng for sacrificing himself for a righteous cause. Now, they were shocked by Lin Feng's terrifying strength. Looking at the hideous monsters, the tragic death of the Heavenly Eye tribe, and the ashen faces of the 8 Great Domain Alliance, the arrogance in the hearts of the people grew. This kind of arrogance was called pride. Good job, Emperor Lin. Too powerful, too crazy. Kill them all. Let's go. Let those bastards from the 8 Territory Alliance know the power of the southern region. Frenzied shouts rose and fell one after another. The emotions of the southern region warriors were completely stirred up. Lin Feng, with his shocking strength, had opened up this unfair battle and stirred up the emotions that had been suppressed for a long time in the southern region. Hysterical faces screamed crazily, their eyes filled with fanaticism and excitement. With Emperor Lin, they had nothing to fear. Peach Blossom, Blue Heaven-class Khanate treasure. 2 of them. Emperor Lin is so terrifying. What kind of strength is this? Does Emperor Lin in the human territory have a match? Led by Shun and King Yin, close to 100 saints were deeply impressed by Lin Feng's strength. The most important thing in the Douling world was the strong, especially the strong who stood at the top of the pyramid. Lin Feng's strength was comparable to heaven's might. It made the saints tremble from the bottom of their hearts. Unsurpassable. When warriors were similar in strength, they might have the mentality to compete and not admit defeat. But when the difference in strength was huge, this mentality would turn into jealousy, envy, or deep respect. These powerhouses who were originally loyal to the southern region had always respected Lin Feng, the ruler of the southern region. Now, they were filled with admiration. Lin Feng was too strong. In just a few seconds, the Heavenly Eye race warriors invited by the 8 Territory Alliance had been reduced to ashes. These were all Heavenly Soul Masters that everyone would stay away from. The Heavenly Eye race was considered to be one of the more powerful races among the neutral races, and they were quite famous. After all, Heavenly Soul Masters were rare, and the Heavenly Eye race were quite talented. But now, Saints, Saint Kings, and even peak Saint Kings of the Heavenly Eye race had all been defeated by Lin Feng. Not a single one of them could block a single spear. Not even their corpses were left. This was not a battle, but a massacre. But in reality, the death of the Heavenly Eye race and Tong Wushuang was just a warm-up. The real massacre had just begun. Chapter 1466. Kill the chicken to warn the monkey. But in reality, the appearance of the Heavenly Eye tribe was unexpected. To Lin Feng, the warriors of the 8 Territory Alliance were the real chickens. The 8 Territory Alliance was the one who dared to invade the southern region, not the Heavenly Eye tribe. Even though he did not know why Tong Wushuang would appear and violate the Heaven Spirit Rings rules, he did not need to know. As long as he dealt a heavy blow to the 8 Territory Alliance, the southern region would be peaceful. Kill. Lin Feng's eyes were bloodshot. His killing intent was boiling. There was no need to hide it anymore. After 3 days of peace and waiting, everything was about to explode. Facing hundreds of saints and star lords and star sector-level warriors, it was no different to him. The weakness of the human race was obvious to all, and everyone knew that. Perhaps the number of star lords and star sector-level warriors in the Douling world was second only to the demon race. However, the number of saint-level warriors was just so. Chi. The blue light was dazzling as he started his killing spree. As he raised his spear, he could feel the space around him clearly. Lin Feng's eyes flashed as if he was practicing his spear. The Doomsday Spear's aura was strong and powerful. With the help of Saint King-level Star Source Energy, Constellation Dao, and Force Dao, Lin Feng instantly entered the state. Spear Enlightenment state. However, this did not mean that he would stop killing. Instead, it meant that he would continue killing until the end. Without mercy. In the sky. Boom, boom, boom. A series of violent explosions filled the entire sky. The terrifying scene was heart-wrenching. It was a hellish massacre. Lin Feng used his most practical actions to inform all the warriors of the southern region. Those who dared to invade the southern region would be killed without mercy. The name of the tyrant was deeply ingrained in everyone's hearts. Now, he was even stronger, causing the warriors of the southern region to tremble from the bottom of their hearts. However, unlike before, the name of the tyrant was much more intimate, much taller, and much safer. It was because Lin Feng's violence was directed at his enemies. He existed to protect them, not to his own people. It was different. Therefore, even though the scene was extremely bloody, the martial artists did not feel disgusted or nauseous. Instead, they were cheering and supporting this tyrant from the bottom of their hearts. Seeing the saints of the 8 Great Domain Alliance being beheaded one by one, not only did they not have the slightest bit of sympathy, they even felt extreme hatred. They deserved to die. The evils he brought upon himself were the hardest to bear. Corpses fell one after another, and human experts disappeared one after another. To the 8 Major Territory Alliance, this was undoubtedly a catastrophe. Since when had the human race lost so many saint-level experts? In the blink of an eye, over 100 of them had died. Although the other human experts were besieging Lin Feng, in front of Lin Feng, who controlled extreme speed and the Tao of space, the so-called besieging was a joke. They couldn't even lock on a Lin Feng's aura, let alone catch up with his speed. They couldn't even touch his clothes. The difference in strength was too great. This was simply not a contest of the same level. It was like a tiger entering a flock of sheep. Sooner or later, all the sheep would be killed or run away. Tao Yuan. They ran away. King Yan's eyes sparkled. How can they not run? King Lu shook his head speechlessly, his eyes bright. If they don't run, only death awaits them. Shun smiled faintly. They don't even have the chance to injure Lin Feng against such a murderous god. So what if they use up all their astral origin energy? With Lin Feng's terrifying speed, he can easily escape from the besiegement. In just a few moments, he can return and slaughter them all. The 8 Major Territory Alliance doesn't even have a 1 in a million chance of winning. Shun's smile was relaxed and natural. King Yin, King Lu, and the others smiled as well. To be honest, they were a little worried before. They were afraid that Lin Feng would be outnumbered. However, this time, their horizons were broadened. Lin Feng's strength had already surpassed a level. Without using much effort, he easily controlled the entire situation. The 8 Major Territory Alliance was like grass. No wonder Emperor Lin asked us to create the sky screen. King Yin nodded in realization. Emperor Lin doesn't want to keep a low profile anymore. Furthermore, he probably wants the citizens of the southern region to be at ease. King Lu said seriously. He intimidates the outside world as well as the inside world. Shun smiled. It's not just the ordinary citizens who are intimidated. I believe that the neutral saints of Taoyuan and even a small portion of the saints of the 8 Major Territory Alliance will be convinced by Lin Feng's strength. This battle will be of great strategic importance. I am convinced. King Yin smiled and shook his head. I was convinced long ago. King Lu shrugged and smiled helplessly. The two of them looked at each other and couldn't help but smile. They were enemies from before. Now, they had let bygones be bygones. They would no longer fight for power. They had already accepted him wholeheartedly. Blood flowed like a river, and corpses littered the ground. The experts of the 8 Great Domain Alliance had already scattered like birds and beasts, fleeing in all directions. Lin Feng floated in the air calmly. The blood-red light in his eyes gradually faded and was replaced by clarity. The feeling of a spear was deeply imprinted in his heart. It was a simple massacre that lasted less than 100 seconds. However, it was comparable to years or even decades of hard work. He used killing to train his spear skills. Practice was much better than thinking about it alone. He had benefited greatly from this battle. My spear doesn't exist solely for the sake of the spear. Lin Feng's eyes sparkled, but his heart was dark. That day, the reason why I picked up the spear and held it for more than 10 years was because I had an affinity with the spear. However, it was more because I wanted to protect my family and everything that I wanted to protect. Lin Feng closed his eyes. Everything in the Lin family village was still clear in his mind. He had never forgotten his original intention of picking up the spear and learning martial arts. It was still the same. returning to his original intention, returning to his original state, returning to his original state. Everything started from the beginning. This is the Tao of the spear that belongs to me. It's the only Tao of the spear that has my imprint and memory. Using protection as the name, killing as the Tao. After pondering, Lin Feng opened his eyes. At this moment, there were no more distracting thoughts in his eyes. He had seen the Tao of the spear of Sacred Master Cloud Spear and the Tao of the spear of Ultimate Dragon Peak. Now his Tao of the spear was clear and smooth. The path to the Starry Sky realm was completely clear. There were no more twists and turns. As long as he followed this path, then the Tao of the spear would be formed naturally. Whoosh! The Doomsday spear disappeared. Dressed in black, there was a strong smell of blood on his body. However, there was no trace of blood, whether it was his own or the enemy's. Lin Feng's eyes were burning, and his heart was calm. Even though he had just experienced a cruel massacre, such a battle was too common for him. His desire to fight was not even as strong as fighting with a master of similar strength, such as the battle with Old Monster Inze and the battle with the Purple Moon Clan. The opponents in the human territory were too weak. Even with the help of the masters of the Heavenly Eye clan, they were completely defeated by him. Even the masters of the Heavenly Eye clan, who were at the peak of the Sage King realm, could not exert their strength. Now, his clone was too powerful. Even though he did not kill many, it was enough. He believed that for a long time, the 8 Territory Alliance would not dare to do anything and would not dare to have any designs on the southern region. In fact, with his strength, it would not be a problem to take down the 8 Territory Alliance. However, there was no need for that. There were all kinds of birds in the forest. He did not even have complete control over the southern region, let alone the others. It was not a good thing to be greedy. The southern region was enough for now. His God creation plan did not need to involve too many people. After all, resources were limited. It would be more efficient to train them together than to spread them out. About 200. Lin Feng was indifferent. Those he had killed were all Sage Kings. He did not do much to the Star Lords and Star Sector level warriors. After all, they were not the main force. If he really wanted to kill, his main body's devouring fire would appear, and at least thousands of Star Lords and Star Sector level warriors would die. However, there was no point in doing so. They were born from the same root, so there was no need to kill each other. They were just following Zhuo Bufon's orders. However, Zhuo Bufon ran fast. Lin Feng's eyes shone as he thought to himself. The moment he killed Nian Wushuang, he had already searched for Zhuo Bufon. However, he did not expect Zhuo Bufon to run faster than a rabbit and disappear in the blink of an eye. Not only him, but the 8 Territory Alliance's Vice Alliance leader, Elder Lu, was also old and cunning. With such a leader, it was no wonder that the humans were so weak. Without a general, how could the soldiers be powerful? In a wasteland world, huff, huff, Zhuo Bufon panted. His face was pale, and his chest rose and fell rapidly. He was already scared out of his wits. He had been killed by Lin Feng to the point that even his soul had left him. Just before Nian Wushuang escaped, he had already sneaked away. After seeing Lin Feng kill Ni Long with his own eyes, Zhuo Bufon knew that today's battle was over. Lin Feng's strength was terrifying beyond his expectations. Seeing that the situation was not good, he naturally fled. Either he did not do it, or he would do it cleanly. So what if he lost face? He could not be like an idiot like Nian Wushuang, who wanted to save face but was also hesitant and still had some hope. In the end, he could not reach the shore at all. I underestimated him too much. Zhuo Bufon's expression changed again and again. His eyes flashed, but there was a touch of gray coldness, which seemed familiar. Exhaling deeply and shaking his head, Zhuo Bufon could not help but frown. He muttered to himself, "I did not complete the mission. This is troublesome." On the other side, "We failed, Divine Lord." Elder Lu's deep voice sounded. The compass in his left hand flashed with a faint light. As expected, the voice on the other side of the compass was calm, as if he had already guessed the result. Elder Lu was startled and puzzled. "I don't understand. Since Divine Lord knew that we would lose, Why did you instigate the attack on the southern territory? The other side of the compass was silent for a moment. Then he said indifferently, if Lin Feng was so easy to deal with, he would have died long ago. You don't need to know too much about some things. Just do your part. Elder Lu's dim eyes were burning. He replied, yes, Divine Lord. Next, wait for my news. The voice on the other side of the compass was brief and decisive. In an instant, the communication was directly cut off. Divine Lord seems to value Lin Feng very much. Elder Lu closed the compass, deep in thought. Chapter 1467. The war was over. To the alliance of the 8 major human territories, this was undoubtedly a humiliating battle. Before they could even enter the southern region, they had been beaten to a pulp outside the boorish wastes and had to flee in panic. More importantly, the opponent was only one person, the leader of the southern region, Lin Feng. Where did their so-called Alliance Master and Vice Alliance Master go? They wouldn't know if they didn't compare, but when they did, they were shocked. Not only did the alliance of the 8 territories lose, but they also lost face. All the warriors who participated in the battle couldn't even lift their heads. Being a defeated general was already a disgrace, and deserters were even more humiliating. This defeat had undoubtedly cast a shadow over the skies of the 8 major human domains. On the other hand, the southern region was overjoyed and bustling. The streets and alleys were filled with celebration. Crazy warriors and citizens were shouting the name of Emperor Lin. Words were not needed to describe their respect for Emperor Lin. Lin Feng had changed his reputation in one battle. The name Tyrant was still there. However, the same name had a different meaning. Lin Feng's position and image in the hearts of the warriors of the southern region was completely different from before. He was like a different person, a powerhouse comparable to Heaven's Might, a leader who dared to protect the southern region alone. How could anyone not respect him? No matter what his personality was like or how he managed the southern region, at least his heart and his body belonged to the southern region. That was enough. The entire region was in an uproar. Every city, every prefecture, and every continent was filled with a joyous atmosphere. This was especially true for the Vermilion Bird Continent, Lin Feng's second home, a place that was deeply rooted in the Vermilion Bird Continent. The Lin clan held a banquet and threw out tens of thousands of gold to celebrate this victory. The entire Vermilion Bird Continent was filled with banquets. The Lin clan today did not lack money. The other continents were not as extravagant as the Vermilion Bird Continent, but they also held their own celebrations. This included the Taoyuan and the Land of the Saints. All the saints were excitedly discussing this battle. Their saliva flew everywhere, and their words were more exaggerated than the last. They were completely in awe of Lin Feng's abilities. The hearts of the people belonged to him. Just as Shun said, he didn't frighten the enemy. His own people were also in awe. This included Shun himself. Lin Feng's strength had far exceeded his expectations. Lin Feng's strength is 100% beyond Emperor Yao's. It's unfathomable. Shun Ji's words were like a heavy bomb exploding in Taoyuan, shocking all the saints. The peach blossom had a rich aura of Emperor Yao, and he had countless disciples and grand disciples. However, after today's battle, Lin Feng had used his indisputable strength to truly replace Emperor Yao and become the master of the southern region. Not only that, it was also true to its name. Human Sovereign. There would be no more objections to this title. When the name Human Emperor was mentioned, the first thing that came to everyone's mind was definitely the super expert who could fight against 10,000 alone and treated Saint King level experts like grass. Southern region, Emperor Lin. Only one person remained calm, Lin Feng. They didn't strike while the iron was hot to attack the 8 major regions, nor did they chase after the cultivators of the 8 major regions. They just quietly watched and retreated. He had never wanted to fight for power. Even if he ascended to the position of Human Emperor, it was also because of a responsibility and an obligation. To him, many things were more important than power. For example, family and strength. Lin Feng only said a few words to Shun, showed his face in Taoyuan, and briefly said a few words to appease the people in the sky screen. Then, he entered the star-stepping mansion. The cultivators of the southern region admired him for his steadiness and hard work. However, to Lin Feng, this was indeed nothing. He had already guessed the outcome of this battle before it even started. He didn't feel surprised or disappointed. He could completely imagine the process. Although Tan Wushuang's appearance was unexpected, it was just a small interlude. It didn't have much impact on the process and outcome of the battle. The 8 major regions were defeated in the end, and he became famous in one battle and stabilized the political power of the southern region. The people's hearts were already on his side. However, all of these were the expected gains. I'm afraid the 8 major regions will be dispirited for a while and won't be a threat to the southern region. Lin Feng's eyes brightened as he thought to himself, even the demon race and the sorcerer race will have to weigh the pros and cons if they want to attack the southern region. At least compared to the southern region, it's easier to attack the 8 major regions alliance, and I'll gain more. With the 8 major regions alliance in front of him, it was like a city wall. The southern region would be more at ease. At least, with the 8 major regions alliance in front of him, he would have time to slowly prepare. As for me, I can successfully carry out the God creation plan. Now that the first stage has started and is going smoothly, it's about time. It's time to enter the second stage. Lin Feng thought for a while and nodded. The God creation plan was a very important step for him. It was an irreplaceable pivot to increase the overall strength of the southern region. The second stage required the support of his real body. The Shield of Truth. Cultivation environment. The reason why human ancient martial art practitioners improved so slowly was because of their natural endowments and cultivation environment. Even though the Douling world occupied a large area of land, and there were human ancient martial art practitioners everywhere, they were merely virtual images. Size did not represent everything. He only knew that the Douling world had a clear division of land after reading many books in the Imperial Garden. The neutral races occupied most of the land with dense spiritual energy. Almost no one knew about them, and they were very good at concealing themselves. For example, the Purple Moon race was protected by a great formation. The spiritual energy there was so dense that no other race in the 9 major regions could compare to it. The difference was more than 10 million miles. Ancient martial art practitioners with the same natural endowments would achieve different results if they cultivated in the Purple Moon race and in the human region. The 3 major imperial cities of Tianling world gathered the most important land in the Douling world. Even though the sorcerer race was powerful now, they only built the sorcerer realm around the 3 major imperial cities and coexisted with them. The territories occupied by humans were like wastelands, to put it bluntly. They were left behind by the other races because they were not good enough for them. Among them, the spiritual energy was the best. The places with outstanding people formed the 9 major regions of the human race. However, they were worlds apart from the other races. Humans occupied a large area of land, but in fact, they were picking up scraps and dragging out an ignoble existence. The human ancestors were far-sighted. Lin Feng thought to himself. They expanded the human race into the wider ocean and the demon race's territory. Firstly, they wanted to protect the human bloodline. The more they left, the more hope they had. Secondly, they hoped to find the real treasure land in the ocean that was wider than the land. However, how could the humans win against the demon race? Lin Feng sighed softly. The human ancestors must have thought of what he thought of. The reason why they still did it was because they did not want to let go of even the slightest bit of hope and hoped for a miracle. The seemingly huge human race occupied the second largest population in the Douling world. However, they were like weeds. They only had numbers and were worthless. The second stage of the God creation plan: provide the 100 human elites to enter the Shield of Truth. Lin Feng's eyes sparkled. He had been planning for this for a long time. The Shield of Truth could materialize. This was its ability, just like when he entered the Shield of Truth to cultivate. Not only was there an extremely strong spiritual energy for cultivation, there were also countless sparring partners for martial artists to learn, improve, and improve. Human martial artists could even comprehend the exquisite coordination method. The benefits were not limited to just that. Even a part of the paradise would be given to those star sector level experts with outstanding potential. As the 100 human saints entered, the paradise became much more spacious. In addition, the spiritual energy resources occupied by star sector level experts were far less than 1/10 or even 1/100th of the saints. The number of people the paradise could accommodate was naturally much more. The previous 88, including Shun, King Yin, and the 10 selected later, the first batch of God creation plan has been reached. Lin Feng was very satisfied with his calculations. It was the same as what he had prepared previously. The 100-man team was not too many and could be nurtured with all his might. The more people there were, the more problems there would be, and it was inevitable that good and bad people would be mixed. It was better to focus on nurturing them like now, and he could also provide them with the best cultivation conditions and environment. It would not be long before these 100 human saints of the God creation plan would give him a pleasant surprise. Bewildering bamboo forest. The threshold of the star-stepping mansion. It was both in and out of the paradise. With the help of the formation master Shun, the materialization of the shield of truth landed in the bewildering bamboo forest, occupying a part of the space. It was not big and did not affect the bewildering bamboo forest at all. Moreover, it would not expose the existence of the star-stepping mansion, nor would it be known by the martial artists of the paradise. It could be said to be killing two birds with one stone. It was an independent formation within a formation. The power of the shield of truth far surpassed that of the bewildering bamboo forest. Fortunately, the bewildering bamboo forest was not an offensive formation, so there was no conflict between them. At this moment, under the leadership of Shun, the 100 human saints truly entered the bewildering bamboo forest and entered a new cultivation ground, the land of truth. As the master and the initiator of the God creation plan, Lin Feng spoke up. The 100 human elite saints looked at Lin Feng. There was nothing else in their eyes other than admiration and respect. It was because Lin Feng had shocked them too much. It was a shock that struck their souls, making them willingly submit. The top strength of the Douling world. From today onwards, you will become the true backbone of the southern region and even the human race. Lin Feng looked at everyone with a calm expression. I will provide you with the best cultivation environment and conditions, but whether you can become a dragon among men or not depends on your own talent, hard work, and opportunities. Everyone, work hard in your cultivation. I hope that you can give me a surprise in half a year. Lin Feng's eyes lit up and the corners of his mouth curled up. The second stage of the God creation plan had truly begun. Chapter 1468. The master led the way, but the cultivation depended on the individual. To Lin Feng, the God-making plan had been in his mind for a long time, and now it had finally been realized. There was no need to think about the outcome, and there was no need to think about it. There were too many variables. Even though they were given the best cultivation conditions, and these human saints were the true elites of the human race, the Douling world was so big that there were many experts from other races who were given such treatment. These human elites might be able to support the southern region, but there was one thing that he was very clear about. The root of the human race was within himself. If there was one thing that the human race could not do without, it was himself. He was not arrogant, nor was he arrogant. Instead, he truly understood it. It was more important to recognize oneself than to recognize the enemy. Now that he was the human emperor, he shouldered a great responsibility. Not only could he not fall down, but he had to overcome all obstacles and improve himself continuously in the face of the upcoming disasters. There was no mercy in war. The strong preyed on the weak. Only the strong could survive. Stepping Star Mansion. I'm back. Lin Feng's eyes were bright as he stood in front of Yushur Mountain. Like a lion or a mountain. In front of the Yushur Mountain, the three-word star-stepping mansion were written in flamboyant calligraphy, as if they had a spirit of their own. What he saw today was different from what he had seen before. This was a cultivation ground left behind by a starry sky expert. Although it was small, it had everything. It was a rare cultivation ground. It was clear at a glance. Usher Mountain, heart-nourishing pond, fire lotus platform. Nothing had changed in the Stepping Star Mansion. The one who had changed was himself. The last time he came, he was only a saint. His soul had been severely injured, and he had no choice but to enter the heart-nourishing pond. That day, he was very helpless. He had 3 things to do, but they were very limited. The first was to comprehend the spear, move clouds rise. The second was to perfect the second stage of the 7 ultimate heavenly star array. And the third was to refine the heaven-rank astral treasure chi. But now, not only did he comprehend clouds rise, his spear technique was also close to the starry sky level. The refinement of the heaven-rank astral treasure chi was even more so. He had already mastered all the mysteries of the saint rank chi. As for the second stage of the 7 ultimate heavenly star array, the reason he wanted to comprehend it that day was simply to increase his strength. By using the 7 ultimate heavenly star bead, he could threaten a Saint King powerhouse. But now, Yang Kai could easily kill a peak Saint King Realm Master. It was no longer the same as it was in the past. Many times, many things seem unreachable, like insurmountable hurdles, but time will smooth out everything. As long as you have the determination and perseverance to take the first step, there is no hurdle that you cannot cross. Where there is a will, there is a way. Lin Feng's eyes were bright and his heart was calm. He slowly walked past Yusher Mountain and crossed the heart-nourishing pond. His gaze landed on the starlight path at the end. In the starlight path, his strength had increased by quite a bit. According to Shun, this was an existence second only to the Jade Palace, and the real effect was indeed so. Not only did it exist to comprehend profound mysteries, it also existed for cultivation. In the Starlight Path, it was the first time that he had perfected the 7 souls as one body, which greatly increased the strength of his doppelganger. It had absorbed 100% of the star origin energy to strengthen his body. That was how he had reached the limit of the battle spirit world's physique, a physique that could contend with any master. Saint King Realm. This was the goal he had set when he left the Stepping Star Mansion. The next time he entered the battle spirit world, he would definitely become a Saint King Realm Master. And now, he had achieved his goal. But this was just a process, not the end. There are less than 3 months left before the transaction takes place. Although Shi Jiuwen's agreement was smooth and everything seemed to be perfect, one has to be careful when asking a tiger for its skin. Who knows what will happen in 3 months and what kind of changes will occur? In any case, in less than 3 months, if my strength can increase by another level, the success of the transaction will increase my safety factor. Lin Feng's eyes shone brightly, but his expression was calm. After experiencing so many twists and turns, he clearly understood that nothing was set in stone. He didn't know what would happen in the next second, not to mention 3 months. Too many things could happen in this short period of time. Be vigilant in times of peace. As long as the result was not confirmed, he could not relax. Moreover, increasing his strength was something he had to do. This was not only a path of cultivation, but also his responsibility, his goal. Now, he was no longer the only one carrying the burden on his shoulders. It was the entire human race. The God creation plan has successfully started. Other than Shun, all 100 human saints have entered the plan. The first ability of the Shield of Truth, Land of Truth, has been used perfectly. Coincidentally, my main body can cultivate the second ability of the Shield of Truth, but I don't know if 3 months is enough. As for my avatar, Lin Feng pondered. His gaze fell on the Starlight Path, then on the Jade Palace. There were 3 paths for his avatar's cultivation. The first path was the mysterious Jade Palace. He had made up his mind. Since he had made up his mind, there was no need to hesitate. With Shun overseeing the southern region, there was no problem. The situation had been settled, and the 8-region alliance would not be able to cause any trouble. It was time for him to cultivate. Starry Sky Path. Lin Feng smiled, his expression calm. A path that looked like it was made of transparent glass. Starlight shone down and covered the top, forming a strange scene. The surrounding light refracted and covered this path, forming an independent world. Bit by bit, it was like a huge chessboard containing endless mysteries. He was very familiar with this place. Starlight shone, and the power systems of the 88 constellations were all on this path. It was simple, yet extremely mysterious. Step. Without hesitation, he stepped into it. Lin Feng was very calm. Closing his eyes, he sensed his surroundings clearly, sensing the mysteries of this place. In front of him, there was a flash of light. He had entered an area of the starry sky, which was familiar and natural. Taking a small step, he felt completely different. The scenery around him changed completely, like a chessboard changing, and the difference of one piece could turn the world upside down. The entire starry sky path was a miniature version of the starry sky. Let's find the Ursa major constellation first. Lin Feng thought he knew what he had to do. He took light steps, consuming his astral source energy. However, with his current Saint King level strength, this kind of consumption was nothing much. The stars were shining, and even if he closed his eyes, he could see them clearly, and he could touch them. The starry sky path contained endless mysteries, and he was in this huge starry sky. Every step he took was like stepping from one star to another, and his heart trembled. One step, another step. The change in him made him feel extremely relaxed. It was very simple, very clear. After 100 steps, his heart moved, and he felt an indescribable, comfortable feeling born from his heart, as though he was enlightened. The cool feeling spread out in his body, permeating into his 4 limbs and 5 meridians, fusing with his cells and touching his skin. Perfect fusion. It's here. Lin Feng's expression was calm, and a look of longing appeared in the depths of his heart, from the depths of his soul. Slowly opening his eyes, his surroundings were filled with light. The starlight was resplendent, and the stars in the sky seemed to have transformed into the chess pieces on the chessboard, instantly moving. He had fused with the entire starry sky. Ursa major constellation, in the sky, in his heart, the small universe of the 7 spirits in his body seemed to be revolving. Everything was different. Chapter 1469. It was the difference in the Saint King level. It was the change brought about by the increase in strength. 7 souls as one. My physique has reached the starry sky level. Lin Feng clearly sensed his body. The vortex in his body formed naturally. That was the small universe formed by the 7 souls as one, and now it felt completely different from last time. When he was at the saint level, the small universe did not have any intersection with the starlight path. But now, it seemed to be connected by invisible threads, and his body seemed to have become a carrier, becoming transparent. The 2 mini universes formed a resonance, and the intersection of the star source energy was clear and free. Permeate, enter, spread, and return. A complete cycle was formed. 7 souls as one. Although this small universe in my body has always existed, the Saint King level is more stable and clear than the Saint level. The most important thing is the difference in the star source energy. Now that I've advanced, the star source energy has changed. What a comfortable feeling. Lin Feng closed his eyes and enjoyed the process. This was actually not much different from the star source energy entering the Saint level and fusing with the cells, and the changes in the body were not much different. It was just that he had absorbed enough when he was at the Saint level, and now that he was at the Saint King level, his body had a little more space for replenishment. It was like digging an additional underground warehouse in the original warehouse, and the items that could be stored were more. But in fact, to him, it was not much different, because his physique had already reached the critical point that the Douling world could withstand. Strength and speed were all the same. It was the limit. At least there are advantages and disadvantages, and there is no harm in sharing more strength. Lin Feng's lips curled into a faint smile. Just like money, even if it could not be used up, it was not bad to have more. Even if he did not need it in the Douling world, he would definitely need it in the Starry Sky world in the future. Moreover, physique was not only about strength and speed, but also dexterity, toughness, defense, agility, reaction, and so on. These seemingly invisible physique abilities were actually of great help to the performance of one's strength, especially for the heaven-level martial artists of the war god lineage who relied on close combat. Buzz, buzz, buzz. Clearly absorbing, Lin Feng's expression was calm. He felt that his body was full and abnormally saturated, and the expansion of his meridians could also accommodate more star source energy. The accumulation of many subtle improvements was also of great help. However, these improvements were all within his expectations, except there seems to be something strange in this small universe, Lin Feng murmured. In the small starry sky of the Ursa Major constellation, there was a familiar yet foreign feeling. The vortex was unfathomably deep, like a black hole, even though it was inside his body. He was unable to see through it. After all, that was the power of the starry skies, not the level he was at now. What is it? What exactly was this strange feeling? Lin Feng was quite curious. His mind was immersed, but he could not figure it out. The blood flow in his body seemed to resonate with his body, but he could not figure it out. Time ticked by, and his physique improved once again. It was as if more and more water droplets were gathering. Very quickly, a feeling of overflowing welled up in his heart. His body could no longer absorb any more star source energy. Even though the little universe in his body still seemed to be insatiable, it was more or less the end of it. Very strong, Lin Feng clenched his fist and opened his eyes. His eyes shone brightly, and his confidence increased by about 3 times. After all, his body had just been satiated once not long ago. Even if the Saint level rose to the Saint King level, there was still a limit to the endurance of his physique. Now he had reached the limit. If there was no limit, my physique would be the best in the entire Douling world. Even the Witch Emperor and the Demon Clan commander would not be as strong as me in terms of physique. If I could fully utilize my physique, even if my combat strength is not as strong as the Witch Emperor and the Demon Clan commander, I would not be much weaker than the 3 sovereigns. Unfortunately, that is only an if. Lin Feng smiled indifferently, but did not take it to heart. After all, this was a power that truly belonged to him, and it was an absolute increase in strength. Not being able to fully utilize it was just because of the environment, but the increase was 100% real. That was enough. The absorption of star source energy and the strengthening of his body stopped here. Even though he still did not know what changes had happened to the little universe and what kind of existence he was familiar with, there was no need to continue. There was still a long way to go from the beginner Saint King level to the intermediate Saint King level, so he was not in a hurry. Whether it was the beginner Saint King level or the peak Saint King level, the level of star source energy was the same. The only difference was the amount of star source energy, control, and other aspects. And if it was expressed in the level of combat strength, that was where the mystery lay. Instead of wasting time to improve the level of star source energy, it's better to comprehend the mystery, increase the Tao of constellation, and directly improve my combat strength. Lin Feng's expression was calm and composed. The mystery and the Tao of constellation were the most important factors to determine the strength of a Saint King level martial artist. The road to becoming a Starry Sky powerhouse was still long, so he was not in a hurry. Right now, his family and humans were the most important things to him. It was urgent to improve his combat strength and strength. The improvement of his strength level was secondary, no matter what is in the little universe. At the very least, it will not be a bad thing for me. And even if I know now, it's not much use. It hasn't appeared yet. There's no need to think too much about the future. Let's go according to the original plan. Lin Feng nodded. His expression was firm, and there was no confusion in his eyes. There were less than 3 months left. He had to seize every minute and every second. Starlight Path. He started to cultivate again. Compared to the original body's combat strength, mastery of many mysteries, and flexibility in combat, the doppelganger was far inferior. Close combat, and close combat again. This was everything that the doppelganger had mastered. It seemed to have maximized its advantages and had no weaknesses. However, it was hidden, or perhaps it was just lucky. Lin Feng was very clear about this. He had been learning from the doppelganger's strengths to make up for his weaknesses and maximizing his advantages in combat. The battle with the 8 Major Territory Alliance was actually dangerous. If I hadn't mastered the application of the soul to replace the human soul, I might not have won that battle so easily. The soul attack of the Heavenly Eye clan was unavoidable. With their advantage in numbers, if I hadn't combined the 7 souls into one, the Heavenly Eye clan would have taken advantage of my weakness and defeated me. Now that I've made up for my biggest weakness, I can make up for it with extreme speed when facing heavenly gods. However, there are always benefits to increasing my combat strength. Huang Xiaolong muttered in his heart. Lin Feng's expression was calm as he entered a state of cultivation. In a short period of time, he could clearly sense the thousands of small stars in the Ursa Major constellation. Although their brilliance was overshadowed by the 7 main stars, in truth, each small star contained endless mysteries. Attack, defense, support, control, and other miscellaneous skills. Comprehending any of these skills to the proficient level would bring the constellation Tao to him, greatly increasing his strength. Dance of the Stars. Combining attack and control into one, there are many different ways to use it. Compared to pure attack, it is more beneficial to the doppelganger's comprehension and usage, including the combination of the Doomsday Spear's power. That day, I didn't have enough time to fully comprehend it, but now again, Lin Feng soon immersed himself in it. Shaman Tribe Boundary, Ancestral Magus Hall. Don't you think it's a little strange? Shi Jiuyan's voice was low, his eyes deep. Second brother, what are you referring to? Kuei-Tu's brows furrowed slightly. Corpses. Shi Jiuyan spat out 2 words. Ever since I succeeded as the Witch Sovereign, I have always been on the front lines against the demonic beast clans, paying close attention to every battle. The number of Saint-level Witch tribesmen's corpses is extremely rare. Usually, only half of them died, or even less than half of them died. Kuei-Tu's eyes lit up as he pondered. He muttered under his breath. Could it be a coincidence? Or the corpses were destroyed? Shi Jiuyan nodded slowly. Our Witch tribesman's physique is extremely strong. Even if they were killed, it is not easy to destroy their corpses, unless the enemy's strength is much higher than them. But Shi Jiuyan's expression was solemn as he pondered. Kuei-Tu said solemnly, "The way of war is to fight the strong against the strong, and the weak against the weak. Unless there is a huge disparity in strength, very few people would take the initiative to wreak havoc on a weaker opponent." Shi Jiuyan lightly grunted on. Kuei-Tu's expression turned solemn. Indeed, as Shi Jiuyan had said, the scarcity of corpses was very strange. 1 or 2 battles might be a coincidence, but what about 10 or 20 battles? There must be something fishy going on. So, second brother, you're suspecting that someone is behind this? Kuei-Tu asked solemnly. But there is no evidence. Shi Jiuyan shook his head. Unless I personally participated in the battle and observed the whole process, there is no way to monitor the entire process. The scarcity of corpses did not happen after the battle, but during the battle. If that's the case, then it's really strange. Kuei-Tu muttered under his breath. A strange light flickered in his eyes. Both of them looked at each other, thinking of the same possibility. Using the corpses, because Kuei-Tu was an expert in this field. First, he had occupied Quiken's body, then the Shi by Corpse Wizard King's body. To Kuei-Tu, as long as his soul was not destroyed, he could occupy an endless number of corpses, reaching immortality. Shi Jiuyan was clear about these secrets. Since Kuei-Tu could do it, other experts could do as well. Otherwise, he wouldn't be so suspicious about the disappearance of the corpses. Behind this, there is a high possibility that someone is taking advantage of the chaos to reap the benefits. Sir Joeen's eyes were frosty, and he said solemnly, "But this is just a preliminary guess. The real situation remains to be seen. Maybe it's just an isolated phenomenon, a misunderstanding, or maybe it's much more serious than I thought." Kuei-Tu's voice was deep and solemn, and his eyes were as cold as ice. "I understand," Kuei-Tu said seriously. "Leave this matter to me. Second brother, I will definitely get to the bottom of this." "Thank you, big brother," Sir Joeen answered. Chapter 1470. The Great Magi Demon War continued. The sorcerer tribe and the demon race continued to fight openly and covertly. Amidst this, there were also other changes that were quietly affecting the battle and changing the balance of the situation. It was not only the sorcerer tribe. As time passed, the demon race also gradually felt that something was wrong. "What's going on? Why are our losses so great?" Kuei-Tinyuan's expression was extremely ugly. Indeed, even if the sorcerer tribe is powerful, their counterattacks are scattered. Apart from the few battles where chi exploded, we did not suffer any particularly heavy losses. Why are the deaths of so many saint-level experts? Niu Yunlei's expression was solemn. Lin Kuei stood to the side in silence, his brows furrowed. As the military advisor of the demon race, he was duty-bound to explain such a change. After all, the real leaders of the demon race were the 4 demon emperors. This is the sorcerer tribe's plan. The sporadic counterattacks are just a cover. The advantage that our demon race has is just a smokescreen. Their real goal is to hunt down our saint-level experts. Yuji smiled charmingly, but her words were sarcastic. Her voice was cold. Some people think they're amazing, but they don't know that they're being played by the sorcerer tribe. Wow! A stone stirred up 1,000 ripples. The surrounding demon kings and demon stars immediately began to discuss. No way. The sorcerer tribe is so despicable and shameless? Why not? Our saints often disappear for no reason. It's been like this for 1 or 2 rounds. We don't care too much about losing one each time. Who would have thought that there would be so many in the blink of an eye? Really, me too. I didn't care at all. Who would have thought that the sorcerer tribe was behind this? It resonated deeply. All the demonic kings and demonic stars formed teams with their own factions. They rarely contacted each other, so it was unknown how the other teams were doing. They thought that it was their own problem and did not dare to say it out loud, because they were afraid that the other demon kings would make fun of them. Who would have thought that it would be like this? Pairs of eyes looked at Lamb, talked tea with suspicion and doubt. In a word, those who were not of the same race would definitely have different intentions. Humph! Lamb talked tea was disdainful. How could he not know what these demon kings and demon stars were thinking? It was his high status and power that made the demons jealous. The 4 demon emperors, Kuei-Tianyuan, Niu Yunlei, and Yuji had absolute power over the demon race, and he was highly regarded by Kuei-Tianyuan and Niu Yunlei, which made the demons feel indignant. That day, you flattered me. Now, you are breaking the fast and abandoning the monk, burning the bridge after crossing the river. Thought Tokti thought. That day, he led the demons to defeat the army of the Magi. How awe-inspiring and glorious was that? But what was the result? As time passed, didn't it still change? All right, all of you shut up, Kuei-Tianyuan shouted. The word king was clearly imprinted on his forehead. He was full of prestige. Yuji, don't speak after the fact and shake our morale. Niu Yunlei looked at Yuji with a cold expression. Brother Lai Di was the one who discovered this strange thing. If you have the ability, why don't you do it? Yuji pursed her lips and turned her face away without saying a word. She was a little afraid of Niu Yunlei. Brother Lai Di, what do you think? Niu Yunlei looked at Lamb, Tokti. His voice was heavy, as if he still trusted him. We don't know what happened in the middle. We have to investigate this matter carefully. Lamb, Tokti muttered with a deep look in his eyes. He glanced at the demon kings and demon stars. The look in his eyes was no longer the same as before. He sneered in his heart. Lam Tok Ti looked at Niu Yunlei. Although Niu Yunlei was deep in thought and did not seem to have changed, but a person's heart was unpredictable. How could a demon's heart be easy to predict? Are you confident that you can find out? Niu Yunlei looked up and asked. I'll do my best. Lam Tok Ti nodded as a glint flashed across his eyes. Okay, go ahead and investigate. Niu Yunlei did not hesitate and quickly made the decision. He said to Lam Tok Ti seriously, do it well. Don't worry about what others say. Don't worry, I'll support you to the end. Thank you, Demon King. Lam Tok Ti bowed and said. However, his words contained a different feeling from before. The trust between them no longer existed. My honeymoon with the demon clan seems to have come to an end. Lam Tok Ti's eyes flickered as he thought to himself. Fortunately, I've always been prepared and expected this, but I didn't expect this day to come sooner than expected. Lam Tok Ti sneered in his heart. The demon clan is indeed a lowly animal. However, this is not how the wizard clan usually handles matters. This is very strange. Who exactly is this person? How could he be so bold as to fish in troubled waters during the war between the wizard clan and the demon clan? Even I was kept in the dark. I have to get to the bottom of this. Lam Tok Ti's eyes were cold as he thought to himself. The rift between him and the demon clan already existed and could not be mended. It would only widen. However, he could not suffer this loss for nothing. Time passed slowly. 10 days, 20 days, 1 month. It was nothing for a large-scale war, and it was the same for a cultivator's cultivation. Lin Feng had been immersed in the Starlight Path to comprehend the Starfold dance for a full month. He had reached a critical moment. The Space Path is one of the keys to the Starfold dance. Lin Feng had a clear understanding of what he was thinking. This was the key to why he could not comprehend the Starfold dance that day. His doppelganger had an excellent talent for the Path of Strength, but it was not the same for the other 2 paths of origin in the Ursa Major constellation. Although the Space Path was strong, it had nothing to do with the doppelganger. The Vastar eyes only existed for the main body. But now, after the doppelganger broke through to the Saint King realm, he had unlocked his body's password and opened up the mysteries of the constellation. His understanding of the Tao of Strength had undoubtedly improved. His understanding of the Tao of Space and the Tao of Metal had also leaped from good to excellent in an instant, from perfect to excellent. His talent in the Space Path was not inferior to the main body. This was the strength of the Emperor constellation. The later it was, the stronger it was, and the more it could unleash the true power of the Emperor constellation. Maybe it was not like the 12 constellations of the King realm, where they were born to be outstanding dragons among men. But the real emperors were the ones who opened up new territories, went through ups and downs, and became the emperors of the world. If they were able to cross the threshold and go through the tempering of the frost, their achievements would be extraordinary. The Saint King realm was just the beginning for the Emperor constellation. All this time, I've been comprehending the wrong direction. The true Starfold dance is not the combination of the Space Path and Strength Path, but a kind of intersection, a kind of parallel but not parallel intersection, is an extremely special relationship. Like 2 crisscrossing lines, there is a certain intersection point, but it is not the same direction. Like the combination of benefits. Muttering to himself, Lin Feng closed his eyes, his expression calm. Faint starlight appeared outside his body, forming a layer of thin film. Currently, he could clearly touch the starry sky and comprehend the Ursa Major constellation. Another layer deeper. His intuition told him that he was 1 step closer. Starfold dance, the crux of mastering the profoundness, lies here. Lin Feng was deeply enlightened. The comprehension of the profoundness at this point, at this line, with this point and line as the foundation, it slowly rippled out, spreading out, becoming bigger and bigger, wider and wider, like a boundless starry sky. The deeper the comprehension, the more he could feel the meaning of the profoundness. Just like the existence of the starry sky, mysterious and strong, the profoundness was the same. A vortex appeared in the small universe. It was extremely deep. The 7 main stars of the Ursa major constellation blossomed with light auras in his body, shining brightly. In his mind, it was as though he had established a connection with the constellation in the starry sky, as rays of golden light descended like a meteor shower. That was the true constellation path. He had finally comprehended it. Opening his eyes, Lin Feng's expression was calm. He could clearly feel everything. Following the descent of the starry sky Dao, the changes in his body, the changes in his soul, he could clearly see everything around him. That was the rise of his cultivation level, the sublimation of his heart. He had stepped from one level to another. There was no excitement, no agitation, only calmness and indifference. The mastery and comprehension of the profoundness was actually nothing much. It was not his first time. He had long passed the initial longing and throbbing. Only after truly comprehending the profoundness, mastering the profoundness, would he know that it was merely entering another door from one door. What he saw was just a drop in the ocean. The sea of constellations was so vast. Mastering and comprehending the profoundness in the eyes of other saints was like unlocking a password lock. But in reality, it was not. It was merely from the small stream of the profoundness to the river of the profoundness. And behind it, there was an even bigger lake, an even bigger ocean, and even an even bigger galaxy. It was boundless. The path of a martial artist was endless. Complete comprehension. Doppelganger. Not only had he gained a part of the constellation path, he had gained another unique skill. Spear. He still had to train. This was the doppelganger's strongest point. But the other supplementary skills were not bad, including the profoundness and the astral treasures. These could greatly increase his battle strength in a short period of time, especially the astral treasures. Heaven-ranked treasures were even more powerful. Demon Underworld Lock. He had already grasped a part of its ability. Starfold Dance. He had even fully comprehended its profoundness, perfectly displaying it. Demon Underworld Lock. Control type. Starfold Dance. Attack and control at the same time. The two complemented each other. In addition to the Doomsday Spear's powerful battle strength, the moment I get close in battle, I can display 120% of my strength. There are very few who could be stronger than me. Lightly clenching his fist, Lin Feng was full of confidence. The combination of Starfold Dance and Demon Underworld Lock gave him enough confidence to contend against other top experts. Of course, there was no limit to the increase in strength. He would not be complacent. The current doppelganger is still lacking the existence of the final sure kill technique. Lin Feng's eyes flashed as he thought lightly. He did not need to defend, then he would attack until the end. Close combat was enough. What about long distance? Shua. A green light appeared in his hand. Lin Feng's expression was calm as he looked at the item in his hand. Heaven-ranked green treasure. And now it was just right. Chapter 1471. Green Dragon Ruler. Although its grade was inferior to the Demon Underworld Lock, it was still a well-known treasure in Yin Imperial City. It was one of the signboards of the Northern Dragon Guard Ultimate Dragon Peak. Looking at the green light flashing in his hand, Lin Feng's eyes were burning and he felt a little sad. Back when Ultimate Dragon Peak was killed by Mantong, the Green Dragon Ruler fell into Mantong's hands. Before it could fuse with Mantong, it died in his hands. Originally, he did not think much about the Green Dragon Ruler. After all, whether it was his main body or avatar, they did not feel any affinity with the Green Dragon Ruler. If he wanted to forcefully fuse with it, it would take an immeasurable amount of time. But now it was different. Since his avatar could easily fuse with the Demon Underworld Lock, then the lower-grade Green Dragon Ruler could do the same. This was the advantage of his avatar. He should make good use of it. Whether it is the Yin-Yang Mirror or the 7 Ultimate Heavenly Star Pearl, their grades are too low. They're useless now, Lin Feng said. Both of them were Earth-grade black-grade treasures. Under normal circumstances, with his own strength, both of them could be used to great effect. They were enough to kill Sage, King-level experts. It could be said that he had maximized the power of Earth-grade treasures. But that was it. Now, He could easily kill ordinary sage, king-level experts with his bare hands. What was the use of their existence? Not to mention which Emperor Jiang and the 3 emperors of celestial spirit. Even in the battle with old monster Inze, the yin-yang mirror and the 7 ultimate heavenly star pearl could not exert much power. Earth-grade and heaven-grade treasures were ultimately worlds apart. Doomsday Spear, Demon Underworld Lock, and Green Dragon Ruler. With these 3 heaven-grade treasures, it is enough. Lin Feng's eyes sparkled. The 3 treasures could fully unleash the Avatar's strongest ability. Using offense as defense, the Avatar's physique had reached the limit of the Douling world. He was already standing at the top of the pyramid of the Douling world. Complemented by the profoundness and spear techniques that continued to increase day by day, his strength could be said to be one step at a time. His future was limitless. Let's begin. Lin Feng was calm. He touched the green dragon ruler with both hands, and a bright green light lit up the star-stepping mansion. The war between the witches and demons. The 2 major tribes were locked in a battle to the death, and they were engaged in a frenzied battle in the Douling world. However, it was also strange. Ever since the strange disappearance of the saint-level expert's corpse caught the attention of the sorcerer tribe, this matter was like a pool of clear water and did not happen again. There was not even a trace of it. Kuei Tu's brow furrowed as the Saint King leader of the group also felt a headache coming on. There were no traces at all. After 3 consecutive battles between the shamans and the demons, the corpses of the shamans were either destroyed or left behind. It never disappeared again. Could it really have been a coincidence? The necromancer from the Shi by race wondered. I think so. I've checked 3 great battles in a row and found nothing suspicious. The Zhurong Magus said slowly. Kuei Tu's expression was solemn as his eyes changed. The whole matter was extremely strange. If there were no problems, why would Shi Jiuyin be suspicious? There must be something fishy going on. However, when he investigated in secret, he didn't discover anything. It was as if there was a pair of eyes watching him. Now, he retracted his net. Or was it really a coincidence? Continue, Kuei Tu ordered solemnly. This matter is of great importance to the Sorcerer Sovereign. We must not be careless. Yes, Sorcerer King. The group of Saint King Magus tribe experts solemnly complied. Coincidence? A sharp light flickered in Lam Tok T's eyes. The group of Saint King Magus tribe experts followed closely behind, as if they were his bodyguards, but at the same time, they seemed to be monitoring Lam Tok T's every move. There was no reverence in their eyes like the sorcerer tribe's experts, nor was there reverence like the human experts. Instead, there was fear and doubt in their eyes. Just from this, one could see Lam Tok T's current status in the demon beast tribe. At the end of the day, the 4 sovereigns only trusted themselves. Their character was determined by the heavens, and their race's characteristics were the same. They could change for a while, but not forever. How can there be so many coincidences? Lam Tok T muttered softly in his heart, but his expression was calm. I wonder which faction is so powerful that they can even infiltrate the upper echelons of the demon beast tribe. I thought that the concealment was flawless, but so many saint-level experts of the demon beast tribe have disappeared. How can it be fake? Someone must be controlling all of this. A glint flashed across Lam Tok T's eyes. He was certain. Among the 3 brothers, he was the smartest. I'm afraid that the demon beast tribe is not the only one whose corpses have disappeared. The Magi tribe has been so high-profile recently that they seem to be different from before. Perhaps they have already discovered something fishy and sent people to investigate in detail. Lam Tok T pondered, since this faction can infiltrate the demon beast tribe, they can definitely infiltrate the Magi tribe. In the entire Douling world, who has the ability to do such a thing and such ambition? He's the most suspicious. Lam Tok T pondered and thought to himself. A cold glint flashed across his eyes as he sneered. Everyone was scheming against each other. The Magi tribe, the demon race, and the mysterious factions schemed against each other. The open and covert battles were getting more and more intense. However, The southern region, where Lin Feng was located, was peaceful and quiet. Compared to the chaos everywhere in the alliance of the 8 regions, the people of the southern region were now eating well and wearing warm clothes. With the protection of the human emperor, they were extremely at ease and felt as if they were bathing in the spring breeze. The various teleportation arrays had long disappeared. No one would be stupid enough to leave the southern region. The matter of Emperor Lin was widely discussed in the tea houses and restaurants. This was especially so in the Vermilion Bird Continent. Now, it had become the leader of the 9 continents. The Lin clan was favored by the heavens and had become the most prosperous family in the southern region. Naturally, this was all thanks to Lin Feng. The boat rose along with the tide. Those cultivators who had left the southern region previously were now filled with regret. It was too late for regrets. However, the southern region was now completely sealed. Those who wanted to leave could not enter. Even saint-level experts were rejected outside the door. What the southern region wanted was loyalty. They were not two-faced fence-sitters. If they could leave today for benefits, they could do the same in the future. This time, it could be said that they were discarding the dregs and taking the essence. In the land of reality, the God-making plan was in full swing. In just over a month, the strength of this group of human elites had increased tremendously. In terms of battle prowess, it had increased by more than 100 times. Every human elite was equipped with several astral treasures, chi, and had greatly improved their physiques. Each of them was an expert who could fight against 100 people. Lin Feng's main body was still cultivating. The second ability of the Shield of Reality was much stronger than the first ability. However, it was also much harder to comprehend. After more than a month of comprehension, he had only scratched the surface. The road ahead was still long. Meanwhile, in the Trampling Star Mansion, the clone's strength had increased by another level. It was not difficult to be compatible with the Green Dragon Ruler. The difficult part was controlling the Green Dragon Ruler and cultivating its ability. After all, long-distance control was not the clone's forte, and the Green Dragon Ruler itself was not very compatible with the clone. The clone's comprehension of the wood element and the space element was mediocre. However, after nearly a month of hard work, he had still achieved great results. Good. Lin Feng put away the Green Dragon Ruler in a flash. He had finished cultivating the first ability, and with the Green Dragon Ruler's attack power, he could unleash its full power. He did not have enough time to comprehend the second ability, just like the Demon Underworld lock. No matter what, the first ability was already there. Perhaps the second ability would be very useful, but it was usually a sublimation of the first ability. Now, he had to seize the time and increase his strength in the most efficient way possible. Other warriors would want nothing more than to cultivate all the abilities of the heaven-ranked treasures. But for him, this was his only choice. After all, time was limited. In the remaining month, he still had to cultivate the Doomsday Spear, the realm of the spear technique, the comprehension of the spear move cloud splitting, and so on. He was in a hurry. Extremity. This was a mysterious force, a newly risen existence that no one knew of. During the Second Great War of the Shamans and Demons, there was still no Extremity. Its predecessor was merely an intelligence organization. Then it slowly changed and changed again. With the arrival of the genius Huang Jifu, everything changed and Extremity was truly born. The Shamans and Demons are now watching us closely. I'm afraid we won't be able to make a move for a while. Right Pole Envoy frowned. Your Majesty, what should we do next? Left Pole Envoy asked seriously. 2 Sage King-level powerhouses, one on the left and one on the right, had a very strong aura. Especially Left Pole Envoy, whose strength was even stronger than Right Pole Envoy. He was almost on par with the Emperor of the Dead. However, the 2 powerhouses' eyes were filled with respect and loyalty. They raised their heads and looked at the man in green on the throne in front of them with great respect. It was an extremely demonic man. He had a pair of golden and silver horns, a muscular body, and a spiraling Qilin arm. His strength was terrifying. Emperor of Extremity, Huang Jifu, a super powerhouse who was once famous in the heavenly spirit. When he was young, He was extremely arrogant. He even challenged the witch King Jiang. However, no one knew what happened in the end. They only knew that Huang Jifu disappeared for a long time. After that, he became the leader of Jifu. In a short period of time, he became the leader of Jifu and became the Ji Emperor. Don't worry about it. Let's wait and see, Huang Jifu said calmly, his right hand supporting his cheek calmly. I'm afraid it will be a long time. Your Majesty, are we going to stop the plan? Right Pole Envoy asked hesitantly. What's the hurry? Huang Jifu said indifferently. Do you think the shaman and demon race can remain calm? In a month or so, they won't be able to hold themselves back anymore. Especially Shi Jiuyin. He is anxious to take over Old Ghost's position. The longer we delay, the more disadvantageous it will be for him. Left Pole Envoy frowned slightly. I'm afraid the shaman and demon race will be more cautious in the future. Huang Jifu nodded slowly, his finger lightly moving on the throne. As expected, no matter how careful we are, the other side is not stupid. How can I not realize it? A faint light flickered in Huang Jifu's eyes. He also felt that it was a pity. After all, the plan had been exposed. Even if the shaman and demon race were to rise again in the future, they would be more cautious. Left Pole Envoy and Right Pole Envoy looked at each other, but there was nothing they could do. Right at this time, Xiao, a streak of light flew into the hall, exuding an extraordinary aura. One of the four golden thrones, Tu Longxian. Reporting to the Emperor of Extremity, someone requests an audience. Tu Longxian kneeled on one knee, cupping his fists and reporting. Huang Jifu was slightly taken aback. He exclaimed softly, Longxian, you should know the rules. Tu Longxian raised his head and handed over an exquisite scroll with both hands. He said seriously, that person said that after reading the letter, the Emperor of Extremity will definitely want to see him. Whoosh! The scroll fell into Huang Jifu's hands, and he opened it with a swish. In an instant, Huang Jifu's eyes lit up. Chapter 1472. In the Mirror Dimension. This was a product of the Energy Civilization, an advanced version of the communication compass. In the grid-like virtual space, countless crisscrossed lines intersected, and a figure in green slowly gathered like fragments. There was a pair of golden and silver horns on his forehead, and his Qilin arms flashed with explosive and terrifying power. Emperor of Extremity, Huang Jifu. And in this mirror dimension, there was already another figure. He was dressed in a black cloak and cape, and his calm expression hid his deep eyes, making it impossible for others to see through him. The appearance and aura of a human made Huang Jifu's eyes light up, and he smirked. A human, Emperor of Extremity, Lam Tokti said calmly, and his eyes were deep. Compared to when he was the deputy clan leader of the Lin clan, he had changed a lot. He no longer needed to grovel and curry favor with others, and he now had his own power. It was not strength, but the power to stand firmly in the Douling world. Lin Feng was improving, and so was Lam Tokti, but they were in different directions. You're the one who wants to see me? Huang Jifu's tone was contemptuous. As a member of the heavenly spirit realm, and as one of the most powerful people of the neutral race, Huang Jifu looked down on humans. However, Lam Tokti did not care, and his expression did not change at all. In fact, he never cared what others thought of him. He could not control what others thought. Emperor of Extremity, what do you think? Lam Tokti said slowly and went straight to the point. Ha 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 ha. Huang Jifu laughed in disdain, and his eyes were full of disdain. You're just a sage king-level human, and you dare to talk about cooperation with me? What right do you have? Huang Jifu's eyes were bright, and his Qilin arms were dazzling. His aura was majestic. Even in the mirror dimension, Huang Jifu's domineering aura could be clearly seen. He was extremely powerful. In comparison, Lam Tokti was like an ant in front of him. Perhaps Lam Tokti would not be able to withstand this enormous pressure in the Douling world. But in the mirror dimension, It was merely a virtual image. Lam Tokti's expression did not change at all. He said indifferently, "Because I am the military advisor of the demon race." These short words hit the bullseye. Huang Jifu's eyes darkened. His powerful aura disappeared and returned to normal. Negotiation required negotiation skills. If he really looked down on Lam Tokti and didn't want to cooperate, he wouldn't have come here. Huang Jifu smiled for the first time when he saw how the human before him could remain calm even if Mount Tai collapsed in front of him. His eyes sparkled. "Interesting. Tell me, how do you want to cooperate?" Huang Jifu asked. "I want half." Lam Tokti's voice was calm. "Half? Can you afford it?" Huang Jifu sneered and looked at Lam Tokti. "Change your conditions, human." "What do you want them for? Can you use them? I can give you enough shaman coins, a reputation, and even the strength of a saint king. How about that?" In the mirror dimension, Huang Jifu's arrogant voice reverberated in the air. However, Lam Tokti just stood there and did not answer. Huang Jifu's laughter gradually died down. His eyes flashed, and he scolded angrily. "Human, your price is too high. I'll give you the money, and I'll do the work. You just need to say something and turn a blind eye. You want half of it? That's too easy." 60-40. Lam Tokti's voice was calm. "I'll take 60, and you take 40. How dare you?" Huang Jifu's aura burst out, his face ferocious. As the Ji Emperor, one of the top powerhouses in Tianling world, he even dared to challenge the Shaman Emperor Jiang. He had never been provoked like this before. "You can choose to refuse." Lam Tokti was not moved. His expression was calm. Looking at the murderous aura in Huang Jifu's eyes, Lam Tokti said slowly, "But I think the shamans and demons will soon target you. Don't blame me for not warning you." Huang Jifu's eyes turned cold. "Are you threatening me?" Sneering, Huang Jifu said proudly, "Human, I don't think you know how powerful Ji is. Even if we're exposed, so what? Do you think the shamans and monsters have the guts to turn around and attack Ji? You, on the other hand, will be as easy as crushing an ant for me to kill." Lam Tokti said calmly, "I'm just a broken brick." "Ha! Ha!" Huang Jifu's face turned ugly as he ground his teeth. Lam Tokti was right. Ji was a porcelain, a very expensive porcelain. Once the matter was exposed, with Tianling's strength and Ji's power, there was no need to fear the shamans and demons. However, his ambitions and plans would all be exposed. By then, things would get out of hand, and he might even be expelled from Tianling. By then, he would be surrounded by enemies. Even if Huang Jifu didn't want to admit it, he knew that the current situation was under the control of this human. To be more precise, it should be because his trump card had already been revealed to others. The atmosphere was suffocating. Lam Tokti didn't say anything. He knew a smart person would do. Huang Jifu wouldn't act on impulse. As the leader of Ji, as an ambitious powerhouse, he knew what decision was best for him and Ji. Both sides were just swinging back and forth on a scale, waiting for the final balance. 50-50. Huang Jifu looked at Lam Tokti with an ugly expression. "You'd better do it cleanly. Happy cooperation." Lam Tokti smiled calmly. Stepping Star Mansion. Time passed day by day. However, for Lin Feng, it felt like only a short moment had passed. Holding the Doomsday Spear, he hadn't had the time to cultivate the Doomsday Spear's abilities, but he was already deeply immersed in the comprehension of the spear realm, unable to extricate himself. Treasures, abilities, spear moves, they were all illusory. As one's strength increased, these would all be eliminated. Only the spear realm was the most practical, the embodiment of one's strength. This was the path he had walked on the path of cultivation, and it wouldn't be wasted. The path of the spear belongs to me. The path of the spear that belongs solely to me. Healing, protecting, just like the path I've been walking. But how can I break through? What about the starry sky realm? Holding the Doomsday Spear, Lin Feng stood calmly, frowning and deep in thought. The aura of astral source energy flowed, and a clear and domineering aura appeared around the Doomsday Spear. The terrifying aura complemented the energy of the spear itself, and the blue light was dazzling. However, Lin Feng's eyes still showed a hint of confusion. Comprehension was difficult. Breakthrough was even more difficult. A month passed just like that. The realm of the spear was already quite refined, but it stopped at the peak of the Saint King realm, and it was difficult to improve. He had reached the end of the path. One more step, and he would reach the Starry Sky realm. But how to take this step, how to take it, he had tried many times and experimented many times over the past month, but he still couldn't break through. This was expected. The third path in 3 months was extremely risky. If he broke through and his strength improved greatly, it would be a waste if he didn't. Fortunately, he had chosen the second path before, so it was safe. At least, his strength had improved in the past 3 months. Who? Lin Feng exhaled softly, and the confusion in his eyes slowly brightened. The doomsday spear flashed, and the blue light disappeared from his hand. The 3 months were over, and there was no point in racing against time. After more than a month of continuous comprehension, there was no effect. Could it be that there would be a change in this time? His opportunity, the maturity, was not ripe yet. Sure enough, for spear arts, practice is the best way to practice. Lin Feng's eyes were burning. That day, he had killed the experts of the 8 Great Domain Alliance and the Heavenly Eye clan. In a short period of time, his comprehension of the spear had improved greatly. Compared to more than a month of hard work, the improvement at that time could be called rapid. Of course, he hadn't wasted the past month. At least, my connection with the Doomsday Spear has deepened. Adapting to my new physique and strength, my spear moves have become more flexible, and I can integrate perfectly with my doppelganger. The realm of my spear arts has become more stable, and my comprehension of the peak of the Saint King level will not be wasted. However, I still lack a fulcrum to break through to the Starry Sky level of my spear arts. A strong fulcrum that can trigger a change and change everything. Understanding, Lin Feng fell into deep thought. He wasn't too disappointed. Hard work always paid off. Just because he couldn't see it didn't mean it didn't exist. Good preparation. Swoosh. Lin Feng stepped out of the star-stepping mansion calmly, his eyes bright. Regardless of the process, he was very satisfied with the results of these 3 months of cultivation. Although his spear arts hadn't improved by much, at least his physique had increased. He had fused with the Green Dragon Ruler, and he had comprehended the Mystery Starfold dance. His strength hadn't increased several-fold, but it hadn't been a problem for him to double it. Especially the Mystery Starfold dance, which could be used widely and was very helpful in battle. Whether it was used with his spear moves or the Demon Underworld lock, it was very powerful. As for the Green Dragon Ruler, it could make up for his lack of long-range attacks. Against the Celestial Spiritual Master's binding attack, he could make the first move. Even if he couldn't make the first move, at least he could create a lot of trouble for the enemy, paving the way for him to close in. First, I need to settle the southern region's matters. Then, I'll head to the Sorcerer Tribe's territory and make a trip to the ancestral Magus Hall. Lin Feng's gaze deepened. His heart was calm, and his steps were steady. The more strength one had, the more confidence one had. Ancestral Magus Hall. Are you ready? Shi Jiuyin's eyes shone brightly. Second brother, don't worry. Leave this matter to me. I guarantee you won't suffer any side effects. Intense killing intent flickered in Kuei Tu's eyes. Shi Jiuyin nodded. Remember, don't go too far. This person can definitely refine the astral treasure Qi. It's good if you can befriend him, but if you can't, there's no need to kill him. Pausing briefly, Shi Jiuyin looked at Kuei Tu and said solemnly, the most important thing is to do it cleanly. Don't drag me down. Don't worry. I'll act according to the circumstances. Kuei Tu said seriously. Good. Shi Jiuyin nodded. A light glimmered in Shi Jiuyin's eyes. Chapter 1473. Southern Region. It can be summed up in 4 words, thriving. Shun smiled gently, and his expression was full of satisfaction. Lin Feng nodded. He looked down and saw the entire little spring continent. Seeing was believing. Even if he let Shun handle all the administrative matters, he had to at least fulfill his responsibilities as the human emperor. As the ruler of the southern region, he had to inspect the place personally. What he saw now was a stream of warriors with smiles on their faces. This was the best answer. Their smiles represented the mood of the people. They were very satisfied with their lives. The other most direct observation point was the teleportation portal. There were no restrictions. As long as one entered the portal, they would be able to leave the southern region. This was another way to judge the satisfaction of the warriors. Along the way, he did not see any queues in front of the teleportation portal. He did not even see anyone in front of the teleportation portal. Compared to the bustling market and tea houses, this place was empty. It was like a barren land. No one will leave. Shun followed Lin Feng's gaze and smiled. After the battle of the 8 Territory Alliance, Lin Feng, you have become very popular in the southern region. No one can compare to you. Shun's eyes lit up. Now, all the warriors in the southern region admire you and are very confident in you. The 1,000 years of the 8 Territory Alliance was destroyed in one day. Now, there is no one in the entire southern region who still has confidence in the 8 Territory Alliance. If Lin Feng did not order the lockdown of the southern region, the warriors in the 8 Territory Alliance would have rushed in like crazy. What use do I have for them? Lin Feng smiled. Even if he wanted to conquer the other 8 territories, it would be a piece of cake. Quality was more important than quantity. The human territories were too big and hard to control. It was not easy to establish a foothold in the southern region. There was no need to expand blindly. After all, the main plot was still in the war of the liches and demons. What was the difference between conquering the 9 territories and conquering the southern region alone? Humans were still living in the cracks. They were too weak. Indeed, Shun's eyes flashed. The 100 warriors in the God-making plan are enough to defeat the 8 Territory Alliance. Lin Feng nodded. How's the progress? Not bad, Shun Wei said. Compared to before, even the weakest one's combat strength has increased by at least a few dozen times. Those with the greatest potential have increased by more than 1,000 times, and there is not even one. Many saints have already reached the pinnacle of the saint realm, but what? Lin Feng looked at Shun curiously. Such good news, and the progress was beyond his expectations. Why did Shun still look worried? Shun pursed his lips and looked at Lin Feng. After some hesitation, he slowly said, I think that the budget for the God-making plan can be slightly reduced in the future. Lin Feng frowned. As the person in charge of the God-making plan, Shun was obviously acting strangely. It's actually not appropriate for me to say this, but Shun frowned deeply. He looked at Lin Feng and said slowly, from a standpoint of the southern region and the humans, to be honest, I feel that Lin Feng, you've invested too many resources in the first batch of saints in the God creation plan. Their potential is limited. Lin Feng's eyes lit up. Since he had spoken, Shun went all out and said, the God-making plan has indeed greatly increased the strength of these saints, and many of them have increased their combat strength by hundreds of times. However, their cultivation development has already taken shape, and most of them are quite old. The pinnacle of the saint realm is probably their limit. To break through to the saint realm, the difficulty is quite high. After saying that, Shun sighed. Actually, wasn't he talking about himself? Lin Feng also nodded when he heard Shun Wei's words. Indeed, most of the 100 saints in the God-making plan had a good relationship with Shun. They were martial artists under Emperor Yao and were very loyal to the southern region. However, they had also broken through to the saint realm under Emperor Yao's nurturing. If they had enough potential, they would have already reached the saint realm. No matter how good their cultivation conditions were, their potential would not change. So, Shun, what do you mean? Lin Feng's eyes lit up. Shun Wei's expression was serious as he nodded slowly. Now I understand why Emperor Yao started from the basics. However, Lin Feng, what you're doing is also a way out. I think we should maximize the use of limited resources and carefully select the martial artists in the second round of the God-making plan. The target is a young star sector-level martial artist with potential, Shun Wei said seriously. Lin Feng smiled. Shun Wei was indeed a qualified leader. From his point of view, this was equivalent to putting righteousness before family and forgetting personal matters. However, he still did it for the sake of the entire southern region. However, you're mistaken, Shun. Lin Feng smiled. Mistaken? Shun Wei was stunned. Lin Feng nodded lightly and said, "Do you think the first batch of martial artists in the God-making plan will be proportional to the investment and rewards?" Shun Wei thought for a moment and nodded. Barely. Although the price is a bit expensive, the southern region is much stronger than before. This batch of saints may not have as much potential as those young star sector-level martial artists, but they are more loyal and experienced. I think the first investment is worth it, but if we continue, it's worth it to continue. Lin Feng made up his mind. Shun Wei looked at Lin Feng in a daze. Potential is easy to find, but loyalty is hard to find. Lin Feng looked at Shun. These are all companions who have gone through thick and thin with the southern region. If the southern region encounters a calamity in the future, they will be the first to jump out. Even if they die, they won't frown. Shun Wei nodded softly. He was completely sure. Money is just a worldly possession. Don't worry too much about it. Lin Feng smiled. How much did you spend during this time? Shun Wei thought for a moment and said, not counting the value of the pyrolite, the God-making plan cost millions of shaman coins. However, I'm afraid the cost will only get higher and higher. No worries. Lin Feng did not hesitate. He understood what Shun Wei meant. The treasures and star fruits used by star sector level and saint level martial artists were naturally different in value. Although they were all saint level martial artists, there was a huge difference between each level. The higher the level, the more expensive it would be. Shun Wei's worries were not unreasonable, but to him, money was nothing. The key was to use it on the blade. Continue to invest resources. Lin Feng looked at Shun and said, however, Shun Wei, your suggestion is not unreasonable. This plan can be advanced simultaneously without any obstacles. The first batch of God-making plan has been on track for 3 months. The second batch of God-making plan martial artists can begin. This time, it will be star sector level martial artists instead of saint level. Shun Wei was stunned. He looked at Lin Feng and wanted to say something, but he could not say anything. However, how could Lin Feng not know what he was thinking? He said calmly, don't worry. When the selection is complete, I will give you the 50 million shaman coins for the second batch of God-making plan. Don't worry about money. Just do your best. Then, the third batch and the fourth batch will continue. I want to strengthen the southern region as much as possible in the shortest time possible. Within 10 years, create a powerful force that can influence the situation of the Douling world. When the time comes, no one can underestimate us humans. Lin Feng's eyes were bright. Shun Wei was deeply shocked. Wizard Realm, Ancestral Magi Palace. Swoosh! A ray of light lit up. Lin Feng stepped out of the teleportation formation. He left the southern region and came here. The 3 months agreed upon was today. Even though he was in the tiger's den, he was not afraid. If he wanted to obtain enough shaman coins and sell them in large quantities, he had to make this trip. No one would complain about having too much money. Moreover, his desire for shaman coins was quite high now. It was not only for Duo and his father, but also for continuing the God-making plan. When the 3 billion and 200 million shaman coins transaction was completed, he could focus all his energy on the southern region and carry out the God-making plan on a larger scale. The development of humans could not rely on himself alone. They had to transform in all aspects. Oh, Lin Feng's eyes lit up. In front of the teleportation formation, a group of 10 led by a Sage King 9 witch tribe member was waiting for him. Please follow me. The witch sovereign is already waiting for you. Cherie, you said seriously. He was neither servile nor overbearing. There was no expression on his face. Lin Feng nodded and followed the leader of the 9 witch tribe. This time, the formation seemed to be a little bigger. Even though he had doubts in his heart, Lin Feng did not put them to heart. Since he was already here, he might as well take things as they came. Which Sovereign Shi should have the intention to complete the transaction. Such a big formation might just be to welcome him. He might be overthinking. Even so, his aura was still faintly emitted from his body, sensing his surroundings. Since he was in the tiger's den, there was no harm in being cautious. Strange, this is the first time I've seen Shi. Why is it so troublesome? Lin Feng was puzzled. Following the Sage King 9 which tribe member, Huang Xiaolong felt as if he was walking around a maze. Many places were filled with dense fog that interfered with his sense of direction. Huang Xiaolong couldn't remember the direction and location clearly. There were also short-distance teleportation formations, making it hard for him to distinguish his surroundings. It was strange. Shi was up to something? Lin Feng's brows furrowed, and a sharp light flashed in his eyes. There are many factions in the witch tribe, and there are eyes everywhere. Please forgive us, Shi said calmly without turning his head. He continued to lead the way, as if he was trying to explain something. Lin Feng's doubts deepened. However, he couldn't tell if Shi was telling the truth, so he could only take one step at a time. It's right in front. Shi pointed ahead. Lin Feng looked over. It was a place filled with birds and flowers, like a paradise on earth. Huang Xiaolong's steps were calm as he felt the rich spiritual energy in the air. From afar, he could see a familiar figure waiting for him. In a flicker, Huang Xiaolong crossed the small bridge. The group of Shi experts stopped behind the bridge, waiting patiently. Lin Feng slowly entered the bridge. Despite the doubts and vigilance in his heart, the familiar figure in front of him was undoubtedly Shi. Shi was indeed waiting for him. You're here. A calm voice sounded. Shi slowly turned around. Yes, I'm here. Lin Feng's eyes shone brightly. Chapter 1474. Did you bring the things? Shi asked solemnly. Swish. A storage ring was thrown to Shi. Lin Feng's expression was calm, but he was bold. His decisive action surprised Shi. He was still considering how to proceed with the transaction, but he did not expect Lin Feng to be so bold. Ha! Catching the storage ring, Shi's expression changed slightly. Although it was a slight change, it couldn't escape Lin Feng's observation. Everything was in his eyes. He was testing the waters. The most direct reaction was the thought in his mind. Indeed, there was something fishy. No wonder he led me around in circles. Lin Feng thought to himself. Looking around, it was a lush green field that looked like a fairyland. The spiritual energy was dense, but in reality, the space here was sealed. It was not easy to leave after entering. With his avatar's current spatial sensing ability, he could clearly distinguish the situation. Evil intentions. But it's not surprising. After all, such a large sum of money, anyone would be tempted. Lin Feng's heart sank. Before he arrived, he had already thought of all kinds of possibilities, so this was not unexpected. Fortunately, Shi did not kill him the moment he entered. Clearly, Shi was hesitating if he should fall out with Shi, or if the pros outweighed the cons. There was still a buffer zone between them. 90 pieces? Shi's eyes turned frosty. His aura surged as he looked at Lin Feng. However, how could the current Lin Feng be weaker than Shi? His bright eyes met Shi's gaze, and his momentum was not inferior. We'll trade 1/3 first, then another 1/3 3 days later, and complete all the transactions in 3 days. Lin Feng's eyes shone brightly as he spoke. He looked at Shi and smiled faintly. If which sovereign is interested, a long-term transaction is also possible. Although he wanted to take the 2 billion, which coins immediately, the risk was too high. Dividing 1 into 3, each time only 1 billion which coins, it was obviously a better guarantee for both parties. Especially the value of the Astral treasure, Pi, and its importance to the witch race. He believed that Shi would not do something so stupid, turning against each other. There was a huge difference between 1 billion shaman coins and 320 million shaman coins. Troublesome. Shi Jiuyin's face darkened as he looked at Lin Feng. Why don't you complete the transaction in one go? Lin Feng smiled and said, I've already waited for 3 months, which emperor shouldn't be in a hurry to wait a few days, right? Oomph. A cold light flickered in Shi Jiuyin's eyes as he said in a low voice, I didn't expect humans to not only be cunning, but also go back on their word. Indeed, this race is lowly. His words were laced with sarcasm, but he was trying to provoke Huang Xiaolong. Lin Feng smiled indifferently as he understood Shi Jiuyin's intention. There was no need to fight, and there was no need to provoke the shamans. It was better for him to endure for now than to fall out with the Magi. He really needed the 3,200 million Wu coins, or even more. If you don't want to do this business, I won't force you. Lin Feng opened his mouth and smiled. Either return the storage ring, pay up, or shed all pretense of cordiality. There were only 3 choices in front of Shi Jiuyin. Shi Jiuyin's face twitched as he struggled with his decision. A sharp light flickered in Shi Jiuyin's eyes as he harumphed coldly. He took out a storage ring and threw it at Lin Feng. 1 billion Wu coins, count it. Shi Jiuyin said coldly. Pah! Astral source energy gushed out. Lin Feng's eyes brightened. There was a large amount of shaman coins. He immediately put them into his bag and smiled calmly. No need. How can I not trust the shaman emperor? Nodding slightly, Lin Feng smiled faintly and said, Happy cooperation, witch emperor. We'll meet again in 3 days. There was no need for more words. There was no need for pleasantries between them. It was a mutual benefit. There were no feelings to speak of. The transaction was completed smoothly. However, Shi Jiuyin and Shi Jiuyin's state of mind were completely different. Turning around, Lin Feng's smile disappeared, and a sharp light flickered in his eyes. Whereas Shi Jiuyin looked at Lin Feng's back as he left, killing intent leaked out from his eyes. Shi Jiuyin gritted his teeth and clenched his fists so tightly that blue veins popped out. In this transaction, he had completely lost to Lin Feng. Human, you have guts. Shi Jiuyin's voice was bone-chilling. Huang Xiaolong left without a hitch. Who? Exhaling deeply, Lin Feng slowly spread his arms. Finally, he passed this hurdle. Recalling the entire process, Shi Jiuyin had laid out an inescapable net, waiting for Huang Xiaolong to fall into it. Once Huang Xiaolong handed over all 270 Wu coins, what awaited him was a calamity, a massacre. Whether he could come out alive was unknown. Even if he doesn't act personally, he can send someone to ambush me. A sharp light flickered in Lin Feng's eyes as he thought to himself. In that case, it's good if he succeeds, but even if he fails, he can evade responsibility. This time, it's like pulling a tooth from the tiger's mouth. Smiling faintly, Lin Feng's tense nerves finally relaxed. Leaving the sorcerer tribe's territory, everything returned to normal. If there was a first time, there would be a second time. At least, before the 270 Wu coins were completed, Shi Jiuyin would not make a move against him. In Shi Jiuyin's eyes, Huang Xiaolong was worth more than 1 billion Wu coins. Thinking about it, it was not a bad deal. Lowly race. Lin Feng smiled indifferently, but a cold light flickered in his eyes. Shi Jiuyin, falling out with each other is definitely not a good thing for you. It's not that I don't dare, it's just that I just don't want to. Sorcerer tribe's territory. Second brother. Kuei-Tu's brows were tightly knitted together. I know what you want to say, but it's not worth it for 1 billion Wu coins. Shi Jiuyin said solemnly. Not to mention, if we kill him, where are we going to find the rest of the Wu coins? Compared to a mere human's life, the Sorcerer Emperor's throne, and the war between the Sorcerer and Demon tribe is more important. But second brother, do you have enough money? Kuei-Tu asked worriedly. Shi Jiuyin shook his head. In 3 months, I only managed to gather a little more than 2 billion Wu coins. The clansmen are already complaining. We can't forcefully collect more Wu coins. Kuei-Tu's eyes lit up. So, twice. Shi Jiuyin did not hesitate this time. He said slowly, complete the second transaction and kill him on the third. Killing intent flashed in Shi Jiuyin's eyes. This time, Shi Jiuyin didn't need to think too much. Even if Lin Feng had more Wu coins, he didn't have the money to buy them. Even if there was no mutual benefit between him and Lin Feng, Shi Jiuyin had to be eliminated. Otherwise, if the Wu coins fell into the demonic beast clan's hands, it would be troublesome. Fine. Kuei too clenched his fists. I'll let him live for a few more days. The transaction went smoothly. Just as Lin Feng had predicted, the first transaction of 1 billion Wu coins was completed, and the second transaction of 1 billion Wu coins was also completed without any hiccups. Currently, Lin Feng's wealth had reached 3 billion and 800 million Wu coins. The word terrifying was more than enough to describe it. It was an extremely shocking amount. 3 days and another 3 days. Time flew, and in the blink of an eye, it was time for the last transaction. In the Sorcerer Tribe's boundary, inside the ancestral Magus Temple, Shi Jiuyin and Kuei too had already planned everything. Shi Jiuyin was embarrassingly short of money, and he had forcefully collected taxes to buy Wu coins. Now, he could no longer afford it. This time, he had lured Lin Feng into the Sorcerer Tribe's territory, and he had made all the necessary preparations. There was no need to show any mercy. One word, kill. Initially, Shi Jiuyin had been merciful to Lin Feng because of his love for talent. But after several encounters, Shi Jiuyin understood that he couldn't control this human. Rather than letting Lin Feng go out would endanger him and the Sorcerer Tribe, it was better to kill him and end all troubles. As for the Wu coins, these 270 blue-grade Wu coins were more than enough. The Sorcerer Tribe's strength would increase tremendously. However, Shi Jiuyin, who had made all the necessary preparations, could never have imagined that he would be stood up by Lin Feng. In fact, Lin Feng himself hadn't thought of this. Who are you? Looking at the black figure in front of him, Lin Feng's eyes burned like torches. Being able to enter the royal lotus garden without making a sound, this person's strength was terrifying. The person was so close, yet Huang Xiaolong couldn't sense any aura from him. This person's strength was even stronger than Huang Xiaolong's. The black-cloaked figure hovered in the air in front of Huang Xiaolong, mysterious and strange. You don't need to know. The black figure's voice was low and hoarse. I'm here to save you. Save me. A sharp light glimmered in Lin Feng's eyes. He had just prepared to leave and enter the Sorcerer Tribe's boundary. In other words, the black figure's meaning was, you should know that this trip is extremely dangerous, and you might not get what you wish for. The black figure said solemnly. Lin Feng looked at the black figure in front of him without saying a word, but his curiosity grew. He couldn't see through the black figure's strength, and he couldn't see through the black figure's intentions. The strangest thing was, this black figure seemed to know everything. Huang Xiaolong naturally understood that this trip was extremely dangerous. Shi Jiuyin's killing intent towards him had been obvious since the first time, and it was even more obvious after the second transaction. The third transaction was definitely going to be dangerous. But what could he do? Wealth came from danger. Huang Xiaolong was eager to get the remaining 1 billion and 200 million Wu coins. Even if it was dangerous, he had to try. Take it. A bright light flickered in the black figure's hand, and an item flew out. Ha! Lin Feng reached out and caught the item. His eyes shone brightly. It was a storage ring. And, puzzled, Lin Feng opened the storage ring. His heart skipped a beat. Inside was a sea of Wu coins, much more than what Shi Jiuyin had given him. There are 1 billion and 200 million Wu coins here. Give me the remaining 90 penises. The black figure's voice was calm. Lin Feng's eyes shone brightly. Extremely strange. It was as if this black figure knew everything. Huang Xiaolong's transaction with Shi Jiuyin was supposed to be a secret, especially the amount. 3 billion and 200 million. Shi Jiuyin had given him 1 billion. Huang Xiaolong had given him 1 billion for the first 2 transactions and 1 billion and 200 million for the last transaction. Huang Xiaolong hadn't given him an equal amount of Wu coins each time. Yet, this black figure knew everything about Huang Xiaolong. Who was he? Not only did he intercept Huang Xiaolong, he even wanted to make a deal with him. Was there something fishy going on? Wait a minute. Lin Feng's gaze deepened, looking at the black figure with suspicion and wariness. Don't worry, I'm not a demonic beast. This batch of penises will not fall into the demonic beast race's hands. The black figure seemed to be able to see through Huang Xiaolong's thoughts, saying solemnly. His words dispelled Lin Feng's last doubt. How about it? You've got the money. Where are the goods? Lin Fengshan stared at the black shadow with mixed feelings. However, it happened too suddenly. But, to him, there were no disadvantages. Fine. Lin Feng's gaze deepened. I'll make a deal with you. Chapter 1475. He made a prompt decision. To Lin Feng, it didn't matter who he traded with. The most important thing was safety and money. It was the same with the auction. Which race he sold to, good or bad people. These were all unknown factors. It was normal to buy and sell openly. Many things couldn't be stopped, so there was no need to care about them. Regardless of whether the Black Shadow was telling the truth or whether Shi Jiuyin would dig a hole for him, these were no longer important. If he were to make a deal with this Black Shadow now, it would only be beneficial for him. I won't take advantage of you. Since I'm selling Shi Jiuyin 90 pieces for 1 billion Wu coins, I'll give you 108 pieces for your 1 billion and 200 million Wu coins. Lin Feng said slowly. Without waiting for the Black Shadow's reply, Huang Xiaolong placed another 12 blue heaven rank Wu coins into the storage ring and tossed it to the Black Shadow. Ha! The Black Shadow caught the storage ring. He wasn't surprised or overjoyed. He said indifferently, "Deal." Without checking, the storage ring disappeared. The Black Shadow looked at Lin Feng and said, "How much Wu coins do you have? I want all of them." A sharp light flickered in Lin Feng's eyes as he asked, "Regardless of grade?" "Yes, regardless of grade." The Black Shadow's voice was calm. "Sell them to me at the normal price. You don't need to worry about money." Rich and overbearing. Although Lin Feng was shocked by the Black Shadow's generosity, he was still a little wary. He didn't know anything about the other party's background. On the contrary, the other party had seen through him. Maybe this was a profitable deal, but it wasn't necessarily a good thing for him. A large amount of Wu coins flowing out would have a great impact on the Douling world's balance. More importantly, the Black Shadow's identity was unknown, and he didn't know the purpose of buying so many Wu coins. Too many unknowns meant a great risk. I don't have much stock left. I only have 8 to 1 billion Wu coins worth of Wu coins. Lin Feng spoke softly, taking note of the Black Shadow's words. There was no need to answer the Black Shadow so quickly. Whether this deal could be maintained in the long term was still to be discussed. He couldn't reject the Black Shadow's offer, but he couldn't give a definite answer either. Fine. The Black Shadow was straightforward. Do you want to make the deal now? Give me 3 days. Lin Feng looked at the Black Shadow, his eyes bright. I have to sort it out and see how much I can sell. I will come and look for you in 3 days. The black figure's voice suddenly sounded, and his figure had already turned into a wisp of smoke and completely disappeared. However, he came and went like the wind, extremely mysterious. Looking in the direction that the black figure left, Lin Feng's eyes flickered as he pondered. This matter was rather strange and full of suspicious points. In the entire Douling world, there are only a few people who can take out 2 billion Wu coins at once. Lin Feng thought to himself. Just now, he had purposely mentioned that he still had 8 to 10 billion worth of pyrolite, and the other party had agreed to it without any hesitation. In addition to the 2 billion wizard coins that he had paid just now. In other words, his net worth was far more than 2 billion wizard coins. He could easily take it out. Back then, I had a net worth of 8 billion shaman coins, and I was already ranked 3rd on the Magus clan's rich list. Could he be one of the top 2 richest people in the sorcerer realm? Or perhaps, Lin Feng's eyes sparkled as he pondered. Who is he? This question had been lingering in his mind. After the black figure had left for an hour, Lin Feng finally heaved a sigh of relief. I'll think about this later. Is it really that important to me who he is? I only sold 108 pyrolytes to him. Even if I sell them again, I will only sell 200, which is the same amount as what I sold to Shi Juyin. Lin Feng pondered and nodded inwardly. Now that I have collected 5 billion shaman coins, if I can turn it into enough energy to awaken the Netherworld ship and save Duo, I don't need to sell more pyrolytes. After all, resources were limited. Although he could make an unlimited amount of pyrolytes, the main material was almost exhausted. Most importantly, the pyrolytes were a secret weapon to him. He could arm the southern region's warriors and become a powerful force that could not be ignored in the future. If he sold too many pyrolytes, it would not be beneficial to him. After all, what was the use of having so many shaman coins? Even if he carried out the god-making plan, he could sell 1 billion shaman coins worth of pyrolytes 3 days later. Right now, it was time to get down to business. 5 billion shaman coins, finally collected. Lin Feng clenched his fists, and his eyes shone brightly. He had been waiting for this moment for a long time. Ancestral Magus Hall. Cunning human. Shi Juin's eyes shone with a cold light, and his face twitched. Kuei, too, who was beside him, was also frowning. Countless thoughts were tangled in his heart, but the killing moves he had meticulously planned were neutralized by Lin Feng again and again. The first time, they had to delay their plan because of the batches of transactions, but this time, Lin Feng stood them up as if he knew their plan. He seems to know something, Kuei-tu said in a low voice. Have you contacted him? Shi Juin asked in a low voice. Kuei-tu shook his head. He did not leave any contact information. He was the one who took the initiative every time. Shi Juin's eyes were frosty. Wait for another 3 days. If there is still no news, go to the Yama Imperial City and look for him personally. He earned 2 billion shaman coins from our shaman tribe. How can we allow him to leave so easily? Shi Juin's expression was ugly. The 2 billion shaman coins he had earned from the shaman tribe's clansmen's taxes. To Shi Juin, this was a huge sum. Even though he had bought a lot of pyrolytes, this kind of misdeed would affect his shaman emperor position. I will. Kuei-tu nodded his head slowly. Compared to Shi Juin, his hatred for Lin Feng was even greater, and his desire to covet Lin Feng was even greater, because Lin Feng not only had pyrolytes, but also a huge amount of shaman coins, and one of the Do spirit world's 3 great heavenly treasures. This was the most important thing. The war between the shaman tribe and the shaman tribe started again. After a short rest, both sides started fighting again. The demonic beasts had provoked the shaman tribe, but the shaman tribe had no choice but to fight. Even though the mystery of the missing corpses had yet to be solved, since the war had started, there was no way it would stop. The hatred between both sides was not something that started in a day or two, or a year or two. They would not rest until one of them died. However, compared to before, both sides were more cautious. Their eyes were fixed on the development of the situation, watching every battle closely. The mystery of the missing saints' corpses was a huge matter to both the shaman tribe and the demon tribe. Perhaps the hatred between the two tribes was as deep as the sea, but it did not mean that they would tolerate others taking advantage of them. Moreover, the dead saints were the heroes of their tribes. How could they allow their corpses to be tainted? When do we take action? Tu Longxian asked solemnly. His steel-like body was compact, as if there were no muscles on his body, as if he was made out of steel. As one of the 4 Golden Throne experts, Tu Longxuan's position in the Ji tribe was second only to the Emperor of Extremity, Huang Jifu. He was in charge of the cooperation with Lam Tokti this time. No hurry, Lam Tokti said indifferently. Tu Longxian frowned and said solemnly, a month has passed, and we haven't taken action even once. What do you want? Lam Tokti looked at Tu Longxian and said slowly, I know what I'm doing. I advise you not to play any tricks. Tu Longxuan's eyes were cold, and his aura was cold. Lam Tokti sneered, Idiot! If I wanted to play any tricks, why would I need to cooperate with you? If you have any doubts, you can report it to the Emperor of Extremity. If we don't even trust each other, What's the point of cooperation? Tu Longshuan's face changed slightly, and his face twitched. He was also anxious to make a contribution, but now that Lin Kuang's words hit him, he had no strength to refute. The Emperor of Extremity said that Lam Tok Ti would be in charge of this plan. Don't be impatient. Lam Tok Ti looked at Tu Longxian, but he didn't go overboard. Cooperating with the Emperor of Extremity was very beneficial to him. After all, in terms of information gathering, there was no force in the Douling world that could match the Emperor of Extremity. Plus, they were splitting the profits 50-50. Just like the Emperor of Extremity said, he didn't contribute as much as the Emperor of Extremity. Simply put, he was trying to gain something without risking anything. As for loyalty and betrayal, Lam Tok Ti didn't have these two words in his dictionary. Profit was the most important thing. The situation is very tense right now. Not only are the Demon Kings and Demon Stars watching closely, even the 4 Demon Kings are watching closely. We cannot afford to be careless. Lam Tok Ti explained slowly. He was telling the Emperor of Extremity through Tu Longxian. After all, it was the first time they cooperated, and it was better to be honest. What's the use of half a saint's corpse? The corner of Lam Tok Ti's lips curled into a cold sneer as he looked into the distance. He already had a plan in mind. According to the Emperor of Extremity's intelligence, the new shaman Emperor Shi Jiuyin had just obtained a batch of valuable hui. Whether it was the quantity or quality, it was better than the previous batch. Based on Shi Jiuyin's personality, he was certain that the shaman tribe would launch a great counterattack in the current situation. And the result of that battle was equivalent to the result of hundreds and thousands of battles. If I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it big. Lam Tok Ti was full of pride. Once I do it, I'll earn enough. Watching Lam Tok Ti's surging confidence, Tu Longshuan's eyes shone brightly. He was deeply affected by Lam Tok Ti's confidence. Imperial Lotus Garden. Lin Feng had entered the lowest level of the Imperial Lotus Garden. The completely sealed space and the Imperial Lotus Garden were undoubtedly one of the most important moments for Lin Feng. It had been more than 10 years since he killed the little Tian Quan and left the Tianwu continent. Now, he had reached the top of the Douling world's pyramid. One of the goals he had set in the past was about to be completed. The Nether Ship. This was a spaceship at the Starry Sky level. It was the inheritance he had received from his master, Bailey Feng, the biggest inheritance he had ever received, including Toto. That day, if it weren't for the Nether Ship, he would have died. Even the entire Tianwu continent would have been destroyed, and the Kingdom of Meru would have ceased to exist. History would have been rewritten, and today, everything would return to its original state. Toto. Lin Feng's eyes glimmered with nostalgia. Toto was his teacher and friend. If it weren't for saving him that day, Toto wouldn't have exhausted his energy and fallen into a deep slumber. Now, there was finally a chance to awaken Toto. Chapter 1476. But how do I wake it up? Lin Feng frowned slightly. He was in a difficult position. When he received the Netherworld ship, he had the Netherworld seal. He was familiar with the Netherworld ship, but he didn't know how to activate it, wake it up, or repair it. Duo had never taught him what to do when the Netherworld ship ran out of energy. The only thing he knew was star source energy. Lin Feng muttered to himself, deep in thought. He had a headache. He let out a long sigh. He already had an answer in his heart. He could only take one step at a time. Netherworld seal. Lin Feng's eyes lit up. He slowly sent a thread of soul power into it, but there was no reaction. Just like what he had done before, the Netherworld seal had run out of energy and fallen into a deep sleep. He naturally couldn't sense its existence. Again, he still failed. Try again. Lin Feng's eyes lit up. His heart was firm. He sent his soul power in again and again, but the Netherworld seal in his right hand still didn't react. But it was within his expectations. Let's try something else. Lin Feng nodded secretly. The Netherworld seal uses star source energy as its energy source. Maybe it can sense star source energy. Lin Feng thought to himself. Instantly, his star source energy gathered in his right hand. His star source energy was also a type of star source energy. However, compared to the star source energy in the star source stone, it was of a lower level. But now he could at least give it a try. Hua! Lin Feng's eyes lit up as his heart was moved. There was a reaction. There was indeed a reaction. Lin Feng's mouth curved into a happy smile. His right hand unconsciously tightened. As his star source energy entered, he felt a huge force. It was like a black hole. His star source energy automatically gathered and was instantly absorbed by the Netherworld seal. The communication between their hearts, the connection between their souls, was like a bridge that had been built. The Netherworld seal was finally reacting. Very good. Lin Feng smiled. Just as he had expected, the Netherworld ship's need for star source energy was real. However, the Nether ship was like a night-blooming epiphyllum that bloomed for only a moment before it was extinguished. No matter how much star source energy he gathered, it was like sand filling the sea. It was not enough at all. As expected, the amount required is not an ordinary amount. Lin Feng thought to himself. In the blink of an eye, he had consumed more than half of the star source energy in his body, but to the Nether ship, it was just a drop in the ocean. The level of my star source energy is low, and it's quite rare. Lin Feng nodded. At this moment, he also understood the way to activate the Netherworld ship. Although it wasn't the correct way, at least it was a path that he could take for now. Activate the star origin energy in the shaman coins and use myself as the carrier to enter the Nether ship. That's it, let's begin. Lin Feng was certain. There were many things that could only be known after trying. In the secret chamber, mountains of shaman coins were piled up in a terrifying manner. A total of 5 billion shaman coins contained an unimaginable amount of star source energy. This was not the star source energy of the Sage King level, but the pure and clean energy of the Starry Sky level. Although the amount of star source energy hidden in these shaman coins was small, the amount of shaman coins was terrifying. Hiss! Lin Feng's eyes lit up. Wrapped in energy, a trace of star source energy was activated, and 1,000 shaman coins were instantly absorbed. The star source energy entered his right hand and was guided to the Nether seal. In an instant, it flowed out like water, unstoppable and extremely fast. Almost in the blink of an eye, the 1,000 shaman coins lost their luster and became a piece of scrap metal. Not only did it curl up into a ball, but it also had no more energy. It was a reckless waste of resources. 1,000 shaman coins was a huge amount to most martial artists in Yin Imperial City. However, it was just a test subject right now. I can take it. Lin Feng smiled and nodded. What he was most worried about was that his right hand would not be able to withstand the powerful star source energy, even if his body was just a medium. If the medium was not strong enough, it would be destroyed by the powerful energy. By then, it would be troublesome. Fortunately, the situation that he was worried about did not happen. The Nether seal absorbed the star source energy at extremely fast speed. The moment the shaman coins were activated, they were all absorbed. It was like a water pipe. Even if there was a huge amount of water, as long as the absorption speed was fast enough, it would not be a problem no matter how much water there was. It would not burst. Continue. Lin Feng's eyes lit up. 1,000 shaman coins was not the largest amount. There were still 10,000, 100,000, and even 1,000,000. Try again. The more daring one was, the higher the chances of success. Hua! Starlight shone brightly. Lin Feng's eyes slowly lit up. The 1,000,000 shaman coins in his hand that were filled with star source energy turned into scrap metal, no longer having any value. However, the Nether seal on his right hand reacted for the first time. Even if it was an extremely weak reaction, it was enough to prove one thing. This method was effective. A faint smile appeared on Lin Feng's face as his confidence increased. As long as he found the right path, the rest was only a matter of time. He just needed to follow this path and walk down it patiently. His eyes were fixed on the huge mountain worth 5 billion shaman coins. Although it was a tedious task, it was also filled with hope and anticipation. There was no need to do anything else. He just needed to melt these shaman coins little by little. 3 days passed in the blink of an eye. 3 short days were unbearable for Shi Jiuyin and Kuei Tuesday. The result was also cruel. Lin Feng did not appear. No one knew if he had seen through their trick, or changed his mind at the last minute, or did something happen. No one knew. Remember, you can only use soft methods. Do not use hard methods. Shi Jiuyin said calmly. Lin Feng is a person who can be persuaded but not cowed by force. Moreover, offending him won't bring us any benefits. Deceiving him into the shaman tribe's territory is our real goal. I understand. Kuei Tu answered. Shi Jiuyin nodded. Also, this matter must be carried out in secret. Do not let a third person know. Understood. Kuei Tu's gaze was resolute. Go. Shi Jiuyin waved his hand, a deep light flashing in his eyes. Bring back good news for me. I'll do my best. Kuei Tu smiled solemnly. Inside a secret room in the Royal Lotus Garden, the integration process was coming to an end. Inside the secret room, the mountain range of shaman coins was reduced to a few small peaks, and they were all small shaman coins. More than 4.5 billion shaman coins were completely wasted. The astral energy inside the shaman coins piled up like sand, turning into energy and flowing into the netherworld ship. Although the astral energy contained in the shaman coins was minuscule, far less than ordinary star origin stones, however, the quantity made up for the quality. It was like comparing a small piece of gold with a purity of 100 to a rough piece of gold with a purity of 0.001%. The ratio of gold extracted from the shaman coins was much higher than the former. This was the case now. After spending close to 4.5 billion shaman coins, the netherworld ship was ready to move. Lin Feng's eyes shone brightly. The connection in his heart was strong. Almost there, almost there. Lin Feng pursed his lips, feeling overjoyed. His previous estimation was right. The astral energy contained in 5 billion shaman coins was just enough to activate the netherworld ship. Every time the netherworld ship absorbed the astral energy, it was as if the netherworld ship was filled to the brim with energy. It was getting closer to the measuring line. 4.5 billion. It's here, it's here. Lin Feng's eyes were wide open, shining brightly. He was pleasantly surprised. He had waited for a long time and finally reaped the fruits of his labor. The netherworld ship reacted for the first time, as if it was communicating with his soul. A familiar feeling emerged in his heart. It was a kind of soul connection. Lin Feng was moved. The netherworld seal in his right hand flickered, and Lin Feng's figure disappeared in a split second. I'm back. Lin Feng spoke softly. His voice was filled with joy and excitement, echoing in the huge cabin. Although it had been 10 years, the past was still clearly imprinted in his heart. He had learned a lot here, learned about the existence of the starry sky world, and widened his horizons. Everything blurrily appeared in front of his eyes and in his heart. Thick memories filled his mind. Nothing in the cabin had changed at all. Time could smooth out many things and change many things. However, in the netherworld ship, time seemed to have stopped. Lin Feng looked at everything around him clearly. He closed his eyes, and memories flooded his mind. He remembered how naive he was in the past. He was like a frog at the bottom of a well. Now that he thought about it, he realized how naive he was back then. However, this was the price to pay for growing up. The path he walked step by step was not wasted. Without the naive him in the past, how could he become the mature him now? People always grew up in the midst of failure. If a blade was not sharpened, a person would not become a talent if he was not sharpened. Now, everything was different. He was closer to the netherworld ship, and he was more familiar with it. He was closer to the starry sky world, to his master, and to Duo. Asterisk Pa. Asterisk Lin Feng opened his eyes, and his undulating chest gradually calmed down. He looked around and called out softly, Duo. Duo. His voice echoed in the netherworld ship, but there was no reply. Lin Feng's eyes flashed. His joyful mood had calmed down, and he was pondering and doubtful. He looked around the main cabin. If Duo had woken up, he would have answered him. However, The Netherworld ship had restarted, and its energy had been restored. There was no reply from Duo. What's going on? It seems like there are still many things about the Netherworld ship that I don't understand. Lin Feng thought to himself. After waiting for a while, there was still no reply from Duo. The doubt in his heart deepened, but he remained calm. Lin Feng's eyes flashed, and the memories of the past flashed in his mind. He looked at the depths of the Netherworld ship and remembered the structure of the ship clearly. The top cabin is where the Netherworld ship's energy is, Lin Feng thought. His intuition told him that Duo's unawakening had something to do with the Netherworld ship's energy. However, he still did not know the details. No matter what, there should be an answer when he reached the top cabin. Lin Feng took a step forward, his eyes gleaming. Following the familiar memories, he passed through layers of light doors and headed straight for the depths of the Netherworld ship. Soon, a ding sound was heard, and a light door was opened, emitting a brilliant light. Lin Feng's eyes lit up. A powerful aura surged in front of him, and he entered a strange energy passage. It was a mirror-like space with 9 twists and turns. It was the passage to the top cabin. Whoosh! He entered. Chapter 1477. Top cabin, the top floor of the Nether ship. Lin Feng had come here with Toto once. That time, to protect Heaven-Breaking City, they had activated the backup energy source, so his memory was quite clear. Now that he was here again, it was even more familiar. I remember that the energy source is... Lin Feng's eyes twinkled as he looked around. Soon, he found that familiar place. His figure flashed and landed in front of a triangular metal tank that looked like glass. There was an unknown layer of soft leather covering it. The crystal-clear light flashed and could be seen clearly. An inverted triangle. It was very easy to recognize. In the top cabin of the Nether ship, the energy source was located at the largest and most eye-catching position. The inverted triangle was divided into clear squares. There were about 100 horizontal lines that divided the triangle into 300 small pieces. Most of these horizontal lines were white, but at the bottom, there was a dark red line and a light red line. Further up, there was a yellow line, a green line, a blue line, and a purple line. Quite a lot. Each line seemed to represent a different meaning. This is... Lin Feng's eyes twinkled. The inverted triangle that looked like an hourglass contained the purest star source energy. However, at this moment, the star source energy with gurgling starlight only reached the bottom part of the dark red line. Compared to the area of the inverted triangle, it was not even 1/10,000th of it. And the most important thing was no. Lin Feng pursed his lips. He remembered clearly that when he activated the backup energy source last time, the symbol of the star source energy flow was not on the dark red line. It was not even on the light red line. It was one level higher, that yellow line. The difference was not small. If it was the star source energy flow in this inverted triangle, it was very clear what it meant. Above the yellow line should be the star source energy when the energy source is sufficient. The more energy there is, the higher the star source energy flow. If the yellow line means that the backup energy source is sufficient, then the light red line means that the backup energy source is exhausted. As for further down, it should be the emergency energy source. When the emergency energy source is exhausted, the flow of astral source energy will reach the crimson line, which is the current line. The remaining astral source energy is only enough for the most basic soul connection, or should I say, the bottom line of the Netherworld ship. Lin Feng fell into deep thought. It was not difficult to deduce many things from one instance. He could infer many things from the stellar origin energy flow of the yellow line. Right now, the stellar origin energy flow had reached the first threshold. The position of the dark red line was only there to activate the Netherworld ship and let him sense it. That was all. No wonder you used the most primitive method to absorb star source energy. Lin Feng's eyes widened as he nodded. Right now, above the top cabin's energy tank, there were many hubs and pipes that were breathing like a heart. Obviously, at that time, If he wanted to supply star source energy, he would no longer need to rely on himself as a carrier. He only needed to place star source stones into it. It was much simpler, but that was all for later. The real problem at hand was that he had already spent a total of 7 billion shaman coins. However, he had only just started the Netherworld ship. It was equivalent to just getting started. Lin Feng nodded. No wonder Toto said that most planets have very little astral source energy. It's not enough to replenish the nether ship's energy. He had been expecting too much, and reality was cruel. After spending 7 billion shaman coins, he had only taken the first step. Huff! Lin Feng sighed softly as he pondered. Disappointment flashed in his eyes and disappeared. In the blink of an eye, he regained his calmness. There was still plenty of time. He did not need to rush, and he would not give up. After all, the lifespan of Toto and the Netherworld ship was almost endless. His father was lying in the ice coffin, safe and sound. He had a lifespan of 10,000 years. Now it was just 10 years. A small failure was enough to motivate him. Moreover, this was a good start. The Netherworld ship had awakened. The dark red line can't be awakened by Toto. It should be because the energy source is too little. It's only enough for the most basic connection. Even with Toto's great strength, he still needs star source energy to maintain. Then, the light red line should be the closest point to the point where the backup energy source is exhausted. Lin Feng thought to himself. That day, when he had activated the backup energy source, Toto was still safe and sound. In other words, from the yellow line to the light red line, Toto could awaken and appear completely. Later, when the backup energy source was greatly consumed, Toto still existed. It was only at the last moment that Toto used up all the energy to save himself. Only then did the Netherworld ship and Toto fall into a deep sleep. At that time, the backup energy source and the emergency energy source should be used. Lin Feng analyzed carefully. After sorting out his thoughts, everything seemed to be getting clearer. Even though he had suffered a setback, the road ahead was still clear. It was just that the distance he had to travel was much longer than before. The area from the bottom to the dark red line was about the same as the area from the dark red line to the light red line. It was exactly 10 times the area. In other words, he had spent 7 billion shaman coins to input star source energy to the dark red line. Then, to reach the light red line, he would have to spend 47 billion shaman coins, an astronomical number. Shaking his head with a bitter smile, Lin Feng felt helpless. How was he going to earn such a huge sum of money? However, he had no choice. Unless we gather all the Wu coins in the entire Douling world. Lin Feng smiled faintly. He was sure of it. He had to think about this matter at length. The road ahead was long. After leaving the secret room, he returned to the Imperial Garden. However, Lin Feng frowned. He felt a headache coming on. 5 billion shaman coins is already extremely difficult to earn, especially now that the pyrolite cannot be exposed. Earning another 5 billion shaman coins is harder than reaching the heavens, let alone earning close to 50 billion shaman coins. Harder than reaching the heavens. 47 billion shaman coins, close to 50 billion shaman coins. Lin Feng felt a heavy pressure on his shoulders. Not to mention other things, he did not even have enough materials to make the pyrolite. The heavenly crystals were inexhaustible in the Netherworld ship. However, the divine beast blood essences in the 3 imperial cities were all used up. As for the even rarer blood essences of the ferocious beasts, they were on the verge of drying up. Even if there were enough buyers, he did not have so many goods. Even the cleverest housewife could not cook without rice. Oh! Lin Feng shook his head helplessly. At this moment, he could only take one step at a time. He could not think of any other way. Counting, it has been 3 days. Lin Feng looked at the compass and pondered. The mysterious black shadow appeared in his mind, rich and overbearing. That day, the black shadow revealed the information to him and completed a transaction of 2 billion shaman coins. They agreed to do the transaction today. Clear the remaining pyrolite and sell it to him with goods worth around 800 million shaman coins. Lin Feng said. To him, there was no difference between 800 million shaman coins and 1 billion shaman coins. However, the mysterious Black Shadow might have other thoughts. That day, he told the Black Shadow about the pyrolite worth 8 to 1 billion shaman coins. If he gave the Black Shadow the upper limit, the Black Shadow would think that he had leftover goods. However, if he gave the Black Shadow the lower limit, the Black Shadow would feel that he could not continue. Although it was a small difference, the effect was much worse. 800 million shaman coins plus the remaining 300 million shaman coins should be enough to complete the God creation plan for 3 to 5 years. Lin Feng's eyes flickered. His plan for 10 years was still clear. The matter of the Netherworld ship, Toto, and his father was not urgent. However, the matter of the humans was urgent. Time was of the essence. It could not be delayed. Shaman King Shibai corpse? Lin Feng was stunned. He has been waiting for you for several hours. He seems to be in a hurry. Thousand Love Emperor nodded. Lin Feng's eyes lit up. He was deep in thought. It was obvious that Yang Ling didn't know the corpse wizard King Shibai. Yang Ling could easily guess why the corpse wizard King Shibai came to pay him a visit for no reason. 3 days ago, he was supposed to make a deal with the Shaman King Shi Jiuyin. However, he canceled the deal because of the Black Shadow's appearance. Now, it was obvious that the other party was here to denounce him. An important guest, a powerful force. Unless I have no other choice, it is better not to offend them. Lin Feng thought. The importance of the wizard tribe was self-evident. Moreover, even if the deal did not work out, he should at least be benevolent. All right, I will go and meet him. Lin Feng's eyes flickered. Reunion. Seeing the figure he hadn't seen in a long time, a cold glint flashed across Kuei Tu's eyes. It was replaced by a kind smile. He would never forget this human in front of him. He was the one who caused him to suffer. Losing Quiken's body was a huge blow to his strength. Although the Shaman King Shibai corpse's body was not bad, it was still lacking compared to Quiken's body. Just this point alone was already a lot. However, this grudge was hidden deep in Kuei Tu's heart, and he didn't reveal it at all. Now that he was living under someone else's roof, he had to hide many things in his heart and wait patiently for the right time. Moreover, it was almost impossible for him to kill Lin Feng with his current strength. He had to rely on other forces, for example, his second brother Shi Jiuyin. Haha, you are finally here, Brother Lin. Kuei Tu was full of smiles. However, he was a shrewd old man. He would not show his thoughts on his face. Sorry to keep you waiting, Shaman King. Lin Feng smiled faintly. Please take a seat. They looked at each other and smiled, but each had their own plans. I wonder if Brother Lin has forgotten that 3 days ago, Kuei Tu asked tentatively with a smile. I haven't forgotten. Lin Feng looked at Kuei Tu, his eyes glimmering. However, I don't need shaman coins anymore. After some consideration, I have decided not to sell the last batch of hui for the time being. Shaman King, please pass this message to the Shaman Emperor. I am very sorry. Kuei Tu was stunned. He hastily said, This, Brother Lin, how can you do this? Didn't we agree on this? Sorry. Lin Feng smiled and nodded. Kuei Tu's expression changed again and again. He said anxiously, If it's about the price, we can negotiate. 120 million is not enough for 130 million. 130 million is not enough for 150 million. To tell you the truth, our shaman tribe really needs this batch of hui. Brother Lin, can you part with it? Sorry. Lin Feng spoke again, his eyes burning with passion. At this moment, he believed the Black Shadow's words even more. The Shaman King Corpse Shaman's performance was clumsy, giving off a feeling that he was trying to hide 300 taels of silver. If he really wanted to negotiate the price, why would he give such a huge number? Wouldn't he be asking to be ripped off? He didn't care about the price at all, which only meant one thing. The Shaman Emperor had already set up an inescapable net. He was ready to kill for money. Chapter 1478. Facing Lin Feng's insistence, Kuei, too, was at his wit's end. If it weren't for Shi Juin's strict order not to offend Lin Feng would have rejected Kuei Tu's offer without giving him any face. His anger would have soared to the sky, but he could only swallow it down and leave resentfully. Watching Kuei Tu's back as he left, Lin Feng's eyes glimmered. He spoke indifferently. "It seems like you're right." His voice reverberated in the hall, echoing in the hall. It sounded like he was talking to himself, but it didn't seem like it. In fact, if you weren't in a hurry to get a sum of money, you would have noticed it that day. A deep voice sounded, and a black shadow appeared from the depths of the hall. It was the mysterious person from that day. Lin Feng smiled faintly, saying softly, "Being in the middle of the situation, I'm bound to be deceived by the illusion in front of me." Of course, he was suspicious, but it was only suspicion. He still had hope for Shi Juin. Just like the Black Shadow had said, he really wanted to gather 5 billion Wu coins to open the Netherworld ship and awaken to do. Therefore, even if it was dangerous, he had ignored it. Be careful in the future. With Shi Juin's vengeful personality, you won't be able to live a peaceful life. Of course, if you stay in Yama Imperial City, with the protection of the heavenly spirits, Shi Juin won't be able to do anything to you. The Black Shadow spoke indifferently, his voice echoing through the hall. "You seem to know Shi Juin very well." Lin Feng turned around, meeting the Black Shadow's gaze. The Black Shadow did not answer, but the aura emitted from the black cloak flickered as he spoke slowly. "So, have you thought it through?" "Thought it through?" Lin Feng sighed inwardly when the Black Shadow's voice entered his ears. How would he think it through at this moment? He might be able to gather 7 billion Wu coins by selling the smashed iron pot, but 47 billion, where would he go to steal and rob? Even if the Black Shadow in front of him was filthy rich and could make long-term deals with him, Huang Xiaolong didn't have enough materials to refine enough Wu. Moreover, if he sold 47 billion Wu coins worth of Hui to this mysterious Black Shadow, what would happen to the battle spirit world? It was hard to estimate. How could he bring about the destruction of the human race just because of his own selfish desires? "You don't want to sell?" The Black Shadow seemed to be able to see through people's hearts and spoke slowly. "No, it's just that I don't have the materials to refine it for the time being." Lin Feng looked at the Black Shadow in surprise. "There are about 800 million qi scattered here and there. Are you interested in them?" "Of course." The Shadow did not hesitate at all. Lin Feng's eyes twinkled when he heard this affirmation. Almost in an instant, the black silhouette tossed a storage ring to him. As if he was afraid that he would go back on his word, his heavy voice echoed out leisurely. "Here are 800 million shaman coins." There was a lot of information. First of all, the Black Shadow was not short of money. First, it was 2 billion wizard coins. Then it was 800 million wizard coins. To the Black Shadow, it was as easy as 20 wizard coins. He did not hesitate at all. Secondly, the Black Shadow had a huge desire for pyrolite. Firstly, he did not bargain, and secondly, he was not picky about the goods. The reason why he needed so much pyrolite was almost obvious. War. Only war could bring out the greatest advantage of pyrolite, and it was the most valuable place. Right now, the shaman and demon clans were the main melody of the war. Is it the shaman clan, the demon clan, or some other third force? Lin Feng pondered, but he still could not figure out the identity of the Black Shadow. However, there was one thing that he was sure of. No matter which force it was, the Black Shadow must be a high-ranking person. He was rich and powerful, and his strength was extraordinary. Swoosh! Lin Feng threw the storage ring over. His eyes sparkled. The Black Shadow caught it, and a light flashed. He took a rough look and kept it in his bag. He looked over and said calmly, "If you don't have enough materials, you can give me a list. If you're interested in continuing the transaction, I will pay for the materials. 3 days later, I will come and find you again." After saying that, the Black Shadow instantly turned into a flash of light and disappeared without a trace. Lin Feng was left behind, thinking. Lotus Imperial Garden Love Emperor, what do you think? Lin Feng looked at Thousand Love Emperor. The latter had become his think tank. After a few life and death experiences, they were already the best partners. He had 100% trust in Thousand Love Emperor. This trust was even higher than Shun's. There were many secrets that Thousand Love Emperor knew that Shun did not. Lin Feng, are you short of money? Thousand Love Emperor's beautiful eyes flashed. In her opinion, Lin Feng already had enough shaman coins. It was difficult to estimate his wealth. No matter how much money he had, it was just a number. Yes, Lin Feng looked at Thousand Love Emperor and did not hide it. Actually, what I really want is not the shaman coins, but the star source energy contained in the shaman coins. Due to some personal reasons, I need enough star source energy. Now, 5 billion shaman coins are not enough. 5 billion. Thousand Love Emperor's full breasts rose and fell. Although she was mentally prepared, she was still shocked by the number. The richest person in Heaven Spirit only had slightly more than 6 billion shaman coins. Lin Feng, on the other hand, had earned 5 billion shaman coins in just a few months. How shocking. However, it was still not enough. Lin Feng, how much do you want? Thousand Love Emperor's beautiful eyes shone brightly as her voice trembled slightly. Her intuition told her that this was not an ordinary number. Lin Feng pursed his lips and extended 5 fingers. Another 5 billion? Thousand Love Empress exclaimed. She was a little shocked. No, I need another 50 billion. Lin Feng looked at Thousand Love Emperor's shocked expression and did not hide it. He said in a deep voice, to be exact, I need another 47 billion shaman coins. He planned to give the money from the deal and the remaining 300 million shaman coins to the southern region. Anyway, the astronomical number of 47 billion shaman coins was only 1 billion. It was not important. However, to humans, 1 billion shaman coins could be used for many things. Bang, bang, bang. Thousand Love Emperor pressed her full breasts and felt that she could not breathe. She was almost scared to death by Lin Feng. How was he going to earn 47 billion? This number was too terrifying. It was far beyond what he could afford. The net worth of the top 100 richest people in the Heavenly Spirit Rich list is not even this number. Thousand Love Emperor's voice trembled. I know. That's why I'm troubled. Lin Feng looked at Thousand Love Emperor. However, I don't think the rich list is accurate. Many rich people hide their wealth well. No one knows how rich they are. For example, the mysterious person who made the deal with me. I think his net worth is definitely higher than the number 1 on the rich list. He had a deep thought. 2 billion shaman coins was nothing to him. He could imagine how rich the black figure was. Lin Feng, what do you plan to do next? Thousand Love Emperor asked. Her beautiful eyes flickered. This person deliberately hid his identity. If we sell him too much shaman coins, I'm afraid it will cause a huge earthquake in the Douling world. It will greatly affect the balance of power. That's what I'm worried about. Lin Feng nodded. They had a close conversation. He did not hold back at all when talking to Thousand Love Emperor. One person was weak, 2 people were strong. Thousand Love Emperor handled many things well. This time was no exception. Sell. Why not? Right now, no matter if it was the divine beast blood essence or the ferocious beast blood essence, the 3 imperial cities had all dried up. The imperial capital in the boundless ocean was isolated from the 3 imperial cities. Just like the sorcerer race and the demon race, it was impossible to enter. With his power, he already had all the main materials he could find. However, just as Thousand Love Emperor said, the black figure was different. He was rich and powerful. I'll buy all the main materials he found and sell a small portion of the shaman coins to him. Lin Feng's eyes flickered as he thought to himself. After all, no one knows the 100% success rate of refining the shaman coins. No matter how powerful the black figure is, he won't know the secret. I can hoard a large portion of the shaman coins, killing 2 birds with 1 stone. If I don't cooperate with him, I won't be able to get this batch of main materials. It won't benefit me at all. However, I have to be cautious. This time, I'll sell the shaman coins slowly. I'll slowly observe the situation of the war of the sorcerer race before making a decision. If the black figure is a higher up of one of the forces, he will definitely make a move. At that time, his identity will be exposed, and I'll be able to find out more about him. Then, I'll know what to do if we cooperate or part ways. Lin Feng's eyes shone brightly. This method could be used to attack and defend at the same time. In his opinion, cooperating with the mysterious black figure would definitely bring him more benefits than disadvantages. Sorcerer race boundary. Despicable human. Shi Jiuyin's eyes glinted coldly. Do you want to make a move? Kuei Tu's eyes flashed with a vicious light. How? Shi Jiuyin looked at Kuei Tu and said softly, "Don't forget, he's from the Heavenly Spirit tribe. As long as he's in Yama Imperial City, we can't touch him. Based on his strength, it's not easy to catch him." Catching an ordinary cultivator was easy, but catching an expert of Lin Feng's level would cause a huge commotion. Once he was exposed, it would be troublesome. Are we just going to watch that brat make a fool out of us? Kuei Tu looked unwilling, but in his heart, he was thinking about Lin Feng's heavenly treasure. Shi Jiuyin's brows sank as he said, "Rumors are spreading in the tribe. It's the after effect of the previous force tax. No matter what, after the tribe's experts integrate with this batch of Hui, we'll teach the demonic beast tribes a lesson and settle the discord within the tribe. We'll deal with Lin Feng later." Kuei Tu's lips pressed together, and his brows were tightly knitted together. More important matters. Shi Jiuyin looked at Kuei Tu and said softly, "Before the old fox recovers and comes out of seclusion, I must stabilize my position as the witch sovereign. As long as I have enough power, what can I do in the future? A mere human is not worth mentioning." "You're right, second brother." Kuei Tu let out a long sigh and nodded. Shi Jiuyin's eyes glimmered. "Oh, right. What about the matter I asked you to investigate?" Kuei Tu shook his head. "I've been investigating for several months, but there's still no clue. It seems the demonic beast tribes are the same." "Is that so?" Shi Jiuyin's voice sounded deep, as if he was deep in thought. "Do you still want to continue investigating?" Kuei Tu asked. "Investigate?" Shi Jiuyin did not hesitate, his expression solemn as he said, "Before the war starts, I must ensure that there are no unstable factors and focus on the witch race. Also, continue to probe Lin Feng's bottom line. See if there's any possibility of cooperation." "Okay." Kuei Tu's eyes glimmered. Chapter 1479. The battle between the shamans and demons heated up again. After a period of rest, the battle intent of the two races became even more intense. Especially the demon race. They seemed to have forgotten about the mystery of the disappearing corpses and did not have any scruples at all. With the 12 demon stars as the main line, they split up into 12 groups and swept through the entire continent. Countless shamans and ancient clans were wiped out. Everywhere they passed, not even a blade of grass remained. Many battle achievements. Lam Tok Ti was given another important task in the blink of an eye. He and Ji had a mutually beneficial relationship. Now that he had Ji's terrifying intelligence network, it was even easier for him to gather battle achievements. For a time, the shamans were like turtles hiding in their shells. Not only did the morale of the shamans plummet, but the ancient clans and the human race were also in danger. If the head was like this, what could the body and tail do? Lotus Garden. Lin Feng, on the other hand, had nothing to do. The cooperation with Black Shadow had already begun, waiting for him to collect materials. Seeing that the battle between the shamans and demons was heating up, he practiced his spear while increasing his strength. Whether it was his main body or his doppelganger, they were both steadily improving every day. One could never have too much strength. And good news came one after another. "I broke through." Lin Feng smiled. The one who had broken through wasn't himself, but one of the warriors in the first batch of the God-making plan. Who would have thought that a nameless little character would, in the short span of 4 months since the start of the God-making plan, advance to the peak of the Saint Realm, and then a complete breakthrough? He became a Sage King. Shui Mu, one of the youngest warriors in the first batch of the God-making plan. Shun's face bloomed with a satisfied smile. As expected, the younger one is, the greater the potential. Lin Feng's eyes were burning. Shun nodded. For a young warrior to be able to reach the sage level in such a cultivation environment, it shows how talented he is. Looking at Lin Feng, Shun was convinced. Fortunately, Lin Feng, you insisted on carrying out the God-making plan. Otherwise, the southern region might have missed out on a Sage King. I didn't think so much. Lin Feng smiled indifferently. Even if they haven't broken through to the Saint King realm, the first batch of cultivators in the God-making plan will have combat strength comparable to a Saint King. Shun Qing grunted in agreement. King Yin, King Lu, and the other experienced peak Saint-level experts are now even stronger than ordinary Saint Kings. Especially the tempering in the real world. It has been tempered into steel. Many martial artists have spontaneously formed cooperation to increase their combat strength. Lin Feng's eyes sparkled as he smiled faintly. With this group of warriors, we could defeat all 8 human territory alliances. Shun's eyes lit up. Don't worry, I don't have such plans right now. Lin Feng looked at Shun, his eyes flashing. I don't want the southern region's strength to be exposed too early and cause unnecessary conflicts. Shun smiled. Not now, but maybe in the future? Lin Feng smiled faintly. Who can tell what will happen in the future? If there was a first, there would be a second. For the southern region, good news came one after another. After Shui Mu, the second warrior, Dao Feng, also broke through to the Saint King realm. Like his name, he was extremely crazy with his blade. Unlike Shui Mu, Dao Feng was not young, but he devoured blades as if he was possessed. He fought crazily in the shield of truth, fought crazily, and fought crazily. He broke through inexplicably. Most of the time, what many martial artists lacked was an opportunity. And with Shui Mu and Dao Feng's success, the first batch of God-making plan cultivators in the Shield of Truth became even crazier, as if they had been injected with chicken blood. Especially with the 6-month time limit, the first batch of God-making plans testing period was approaching, which forced the warriors to be unwilling to admit defeat. They were not weaker than anyone else. And for Lin Feng, the results were undoubtedly gratifying. The 6-month time limit caused the first batch of God-making plan cultivators to explode. This batch of Southern region's most loyal and strongest warriors welcomed a huge breakthrough in the last 2 months. A total of 12 warriors became Saint Kings, including King Yin, who broke through on the last day. His talent was average, and so was his aptitude. But in terms of fighting spirit, King Yin looked down on everyone else. He was born with a warrior's heart, and had the thought of not admitting defeat. Although his aptitude was not as good as other warriors, after years of accumulation, King Yin finally broke through to the Saint King realm. With his own foundation, King Yin's strength was more than 1 level stronger than the human demon Holy Lord. He was now the second strongest human. He was second only to Lin Feng. But it was only temporary. I believe that after this seclusion, Empress Love will definitely break through to the Saint King realm. Lin Feng smiled. Like him, Empress Love had broken through to the Saint King realm. Her aptitude, and combat strength were all top-notch. She was a rare genius of the human race. In the past few months, Empress Love had been strengthened in various ways. With the help of heaven-grade treasures, once she broke through to the Saint King realm, her strength would definitely surpass King Yan's. At that time, even if she can't compare to Li Chan, she will at least be on par with Daoist Tianji. Lin Feng nodded slowly. After breaking through to the Saint King realm, she would have the strength of a city guard. This was his estimation of Empress Love's strength. He did not estimate her strength, only her weakness. Lotus Garden. Here are 300 million Wu coins. I'll leave them to you, King Yin. Lin Feng looked at King Yin calmly. 300 million Wu coins. With King Yin as the leader, the first batch of 12 elite warriors who broke through to the Saint King realm swallowed their saliva in shock. Looking at Emperor Lin, who was at the same level as them but had a huge gap in strength, there was only admiration in their eyes. They clearly knew who had brought them to the level of Saint Kings. It was this ordinary-looking young emperor in front of them. Isn't this too much? King Yan's face twitched. Even though he was used to seeing big scenes, he could not help but feel dizzy from the huge amount of Wu coins. Lin Feng blandly shook his head and said, "For a Saint King to improve his or her power, no matter if it's treasures or star fruits, they're all much more expensive than those for a Saint King. Besides, those treasures and star fruits are extremely rare. 300 million Wu coins is barely enough." According to his original plan, the god-making project would stop when they reached the Saint King realm. However, since the results were so good, it would be a pity not to continue. Moreover, he had enough Wu coins. It was not a bad idea to nurture some powerful warriors. After deducting the 300 million Wu coins, he still had 800 million Wu coins. In addition, the materials given by the Black Shadow were already in place. The Wu coins kept coming in. He did not need to worry about money. He could complete 2, 3, or even 4 projects at the same time. After reaching the Saint King realm, they also needed to change their cultivation environment. The Grand Lotus Garden was a good choice. The first batch of the god-making project ended. The results were quite impressive. 12 of them had broken through to the Saint King realm. This was undoubtedly unprecedented for humans. As for those powerful warriors who had not broken through to the Saint King realm, their battle strength had also increased considerably. However, the 6 months of dedicated cultivation had ended. Limited resources must be used in the most reasonable way. Even if Lin Feng was a little reluctant, he had to do it. Nothing could be accomplished without rules. These 88 powerful warriors could still continue to cultivate in the real place. However, they could no longer enjoy other special resources. Whether they could break through the bottleneck in the future would depend on their own luck. However, no matter what, the current cultivation conditions were more than 10 times or even 100 times better than before. I believe that given enough patience and time, many of them can still break through. Lin Feng's eyes shone as he said seriously, "Yes, just like King Yan. Many of them are good seedlings handpicked by Emperor Yao. Perhaps their talents are not high now, but they have the will to fight and will not admit defeat." Shun nodded. Character determines fate. The training in the real place will definitely help them improve. How is the second batch of god-making project warriors? Lin Feng asked. Very good. Shun nodded in satisfaction. Among the 1,000 young warriors selected, hundreds of them have broken through to the Saint King realm. Very good. Lin Feng's eyes shone. This batch of warriors was a signal and an experiment. They were the young warriors with potential that he had asked Shun to select. Perhaps their loyalty was not as good as the first batch of god-making project warriors, but their talents were much better. In just a few months, they had made such progress. The results were quite good. It's just that. Shun frowned and stopped talking. Lin Feng saw the subtle changes in his expression. How could he not understand? One word, money. The results were far beyond expectations. Then, the following budget would also be far beyond expectations. To Shun, this was undoubtedly a happy headache. Right now, millions and tens of millions of shaman coins were flowing out. Although it would cultivate a large number of warriors with excellent talents, it would also dry up the finances. Here are 300 million shaman coins. Lin Feng took out a storage ring and smiled. Wow! Shun's eyes completely lit up. He looked at Lin Feng in disbelief. Too mysterious. Where did Lin Feng get so much money? It was like an inexhaustible treasury. It was quite bizarre. I said, "You don't need to worry about money." Lin Feng looked at Shun with a faint smile and said seriously, "Shun, what you need to do is to select more elite warriors for the southern region and cultivate more Saint Kings and Saint Kings. The more the better. Funding is just a small problem. Immediately start the expansion. The third batch of god-making project can be started. The fourth batch can also be prepared." Lin Feng's eyes lit up. As the god-making project was carried out, the thoughts in his mind grew stronger and stronger. Humans had the ability to improve. As long as there were enough resources, humans could continuously improve their strength. Although they could not compare to the sorcerer tribe and the demon tribe in a short period of time, they could become a force that could not be underestimated in the Doling world. The current southern region had a total of 600 saints. Compared to the past, it had doubled, and this was just the beginning. Chapter 1480. His heart clenched tightly. To Lin Feng, it was torturous. But for some reason, every time he cultivated, he felt like his body was calling out to something, like his breathing or his pulse. What's going on? Opening his eyes, Lin Feng looked at his hand, then at the doomsday spear, and his brows furrowed. The feeling was blurry, hazy, but it was real. It made him unable to calm down, unable to focus. His entire being had been in a daze for a long time, inexplicable and puzzled. Too strange. Lin Feng's heart shuddered inwardly. There was nothing strange about his body, and there was nothing strange about his surroundings. But there was a strange feeling in his heart, like a raging fire, like something was calling out to him from afar. But he couldn't get an answer. The war of the shamans and demons gradually heated up. The demonic beast clans slaughtered without restraint, and the 12 demonic beast stars slaughtered the shamans and demons. Corpses littered the ground. The scattered resistance of the shamans and demons was more like a show than a defense. They fired one shot after another, completely disregarding the lives of the ancient races and humans. They even gave up on the shamans and demons outside the borders. But was that really the case? He just wants us to lower our guard. Lam Tok Ti said, exaggeration. Yuji looked seductively at Lam Tok Ti, a disdainful smile on her face, her fingernails lightly scratching the air. What do you mean? Neo Yunlei's gaze deepened. Looking at the 4 demonic beast emperors, Lam Tok Ti said slowly, the new shaman emperor Shi Jiang and Di Jiang have always been at odds. Now that Di Jiang is recovering from his injuries, if Shi Jiang doesn't seize this opportunity to seize power and secure the shaman emperor's throne, when will he wait? Therefore, he won't sit still and wait for death, earning himself the name of a coward. Even if the chances are slim, Shi Jiang will fight with his life on the line. Even if he loses, he won't lose much. But if he can win against our demonic beast clans, Shi Jiang will be able to secure the shaman emperor's throne and pull Di Jiang down. Huang Xiaolong's words were firm and decisive. The demonic beast emperors nodded thoughtfully. Compared to humans, demons were not good at scheming. It's so complicated. Humans are really narrow-minded. Xiong Bao grumbled, his thick nostrils fuming. I'm afraid you're the only one saying that. Fox G's breath was like orchids, and her eyes were mesmerizing. She smiled seductively. For what I know, Shi Jiang is a coward. He has always been suppressed by Di Jiang, not daring to resist. Right now, our demonic beast army is unstoppable. How could Shi Jiang dare to go against the current? Isn't he courting death? Lam Tok Ti smiled faintly and did not refute. His gaze fell on Kuei Tianyuan and Niu Yunlei. Although they were the 4 demonic sovereigns, in terms of strength, Fox Princess was not as good as Kuei Tianyuan and Niu Yunlei. As for Xiong Bao, although his strength was not inferior, he was careless and did not have much intelligence. Therefore, the decisions of the Yao race were basically made by Niu Yunlei and Kuei Tianyuan. Lam Tok Ti was put in an important position, and it was Kuei Tianyuan's suggestion that Niu Yunlei voted to approve. In your opinion, what will Shi Jiang do next? Niu Yunlei looked at Lam Tok Ti and asked in a low voice. Lure the enemy deep in. It's fine if they don't send out their troops, but once they send out their troops, their army will be slaughtered. Lam Tok Ti's eyes shone brightly. The other demonic sovereigns' breathing quickened. Where does the sorcerer race's strength come from? Fox G sneered. Demonic sovereigns don't know. Lam Tok Ti looked at Fox G, indifferent to her mocking words. His expression was solemn as he said, Serene has secretly collected another batch of humph. Adding the previous batch, if they are used together, their power is hard to estimate. What? The demonic sovereign's faces tightened. Humph. They still had lingering fears about the humph's perverse power. 1 or 2 humph was nothing special, but if more than 100 humph were used in a war, the power was hard to estimate. Just think about it. Several hundred Saint Realm divine beasts with immortal bodies charging. How terrifying was that? In that war, the sorcerer race had suffered heavy casualties. Can't we find out the humph's origin? Kue Tinyuan's face was ugly. Lam Tok Ti shook his head. Even with G's intelligence network, we can't find out the person behind the humph. However, in the past few months, the humph has completely disappeared. In my opinion, the refining materials must have been exhausted. The batch of humph Serene collected should be the last batch. The demonic sovereigns heaved a sigh of relief hearing Huang Xiaolong's words. If the humph was inexhaustible, they didn't know how to fight the war. At least there was a limit. What do you think we should do? Neo Yunlei looked at Lam Tok Ti. His trust in him surpassed Fox G. Lam Tok Ti's eyes shone brightly. Since there will be a war, let's go all out and give the sorcerer race a quick death. Lam Tok Ti's eyes shone brightly as he said, the sorcerer race must be gathering their troops in secret. Based on our demonic beast race's position, the sorcerer race will definitely start a war with us near the ancient northern region. Why don't we beat them at their own game? We'll split into 2 groups. One group will fight the sorcerer race and restrain them, while the other group will march south and take over the ancient southern region. Give the ancient race a devastating blow. His voice was resolute, and the demonic sovereign's eyes shone brightly. The ancient race was always the demonic beast race's sore spot, especially the fire-attributed ancient race in the ancient southern region. Their long-range flame attacks were the strongest among the heavenly god realm experts. Lam Tok Ti's plan was perfect. It was exactly what they wanted. Good. Kue Tianyuan and Neo Yunlei's fighting spirit sword. In the mirror space, inform the Emperor of Extremity to prepare for action, Lam Tok Ti said in a low voice. 2 Longshuan's eyes shone brightly. If what you said is true, this battle will be intense and involve a lot of people. How can the demonic beast race not notice that so many corpses have disappeared? They won't notice. Lam Tok Ti's eyes were cold as he said, the sorcerer race is coming fiercely. It will definitely be a thunderous attack. The demonic beast race experts in the ancient northern region won't have any chance of survival, since they'll be wiped out by the sorcerer race, who will notice the lack of corpses. Tu Longxian laughed coldly. You're ruthless, sending the demonic beast race to the graveyard with your own hands. If he's heartless, I won't be righteous, Lam Tok Ti said slowly. What's in it for me to help the demonic beast race defeat the sorcerer race? Animals will always be animals. Even if they transform into human form, they're still animals. They're cold-blooded and heartless. When the rabbit is dead, the hound will be cooked. I have to plan for myself. Tu Longxian nodded. All right, I'll report this to the Emperor of Extremity. I wish us a pleasant cooperation. A pleasant cooperation. Lam Tok Ti extended his hand to shake Tu Longshuan's hand. When the time comes, if the demonic beast race takes their anger out on you, the door to Extremity will always be open for you. You're welcome to join us. Tu Longxian laughed. As soon as he finished speaking, he disappeared. Lam Tok Ti laughed coldly and shook his head. Stupid. You're stupid, but you think others are as stupid, Lam Tok Ti muttered. If he really did that and pushed the demonic beast race into a desperate situation, how could he possibly survive? Even if he was lucky enough to escape, would Extremity take him in? Knowing the fickleness of human nature was important. If he had no power or influence, Extremity would definitely hit him when he was down and kill him. 50-50 split sounded nice, but the initiative was always in Extremity's hands. If he wanted to get a share, he had to have enough bargaining chips in his hands. And the demonic beast race was his bargaining chip. Why would Extremity expose him? Extremity's corpses. Lam Tok Ti's eyes brightened. Let's take it slow. I want to see what Extremity is planning. With that in mind, Lam Tok T's figure slowly disappeared like fragments. It was getting worse. It was getting more frequent. It was so frequent that he could not cultivate in peace. He would be interrupted from time to time. To Lin Feng, this was undoubtedly torture. It was as if he was doing the same thing. After doing it for a while, he would be interrupted, and after doing it for a while, he would be interrupted again. Cultivation needed to be done from beginning to end. For example, the best cultivation for refining artifacts was usually done in one go. If he was interrupted so frequently, how could he cultivate successfully? Since that was the case, he might as well not cultivate. After leaving the Imperial Garden, Lin Feng returned to the southern region. Together with Shun, he inspected the progress of the God creation plan while patrolling the entire southern region. As the human emperor, even if he did not do many things personally, he had to see and experience them personally to understand them accurately. The needs of the people, their mentality, the atmosphere of the entire southern region, and so on. These had to be seen with his eyes and heard with his ears. Big news! Shun turned off the compass. His eyes shone brightly as he looked at Lin Feng. Oh, Lin Feng was curious. The sorcerer race is finally retaliating. Shun's eyes glimmered. He clenched his right fist in excitement. Although the southern region had become independent, Shun was still an old-fashioned person. In his heart, the balance was more biased towards the sorcerer race. Or perhaps it was because the sorcerer race was weaker. Lin Feng smiled faintly and nodded. This was within his expectations. Shi Jiuyin had bought so many hui, he would not just use them as decorations. Earlier, when he heard that the sorcerer race had become a coward, he had already guessed that the sorcerer race would retaliate sooner or later. What mattered was how strong and ruthless their retaliation was. What's the situation now? Lin Feng asked curiously. Very intense. Shun's face was burning with excitement. I've heard that many sorcerer kings are participating in the battle. Although the demonic beast race seems to be prepared, they are still caught off guard by the sorcerer race's counterattack. The sorcerer race has a small advantage, and with Sorcerer Emperor Shi Jiuyin personally leading the army, the demonic beast race is retreating. Lin Feng nodded. It seemed like the sorcerer race was serious this time. The demonic beast race was in trouble. DDD. Shun's compass sent out messages from time to time. Every time he opened a message, Shun's face lit up with joy. Lin Feng smiled faintly. He did not need to say anything to know the current situation. To him, if the sorcerer race could obtain a complete victory, it would be a good thing. After all, the demonic beast race's strength was too great, suppressing the sorcerer race in all aspects. From a standpoint of the southern region's ruler, the human emperor, the more balanced the situation was, the more difficult it was to fight. Only when the snipe and the clam fought, the human race would benefit. His heart was refreshed, but suddenly, Lin Feng's expression changed. He felt as if his heart was being squeezed tightly, and it was strangely painful. It's happening again. Moreover, this time, it was more intense than the previous time. Frowning, Lin Feng's eyes glimmered. While he was puzzled, he saw Shun's expression change drastically. Shock, astonishment, and horror filled his face. The paleness was obvious. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.